Okay. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagodia. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, can you please give me a thumbs up? Let me know that I'm audible so that we can start with the discussion. Done. Done then. Let's start. So, before I start the discussion for the today, for today's class, these are the two important articles that have appeared in different newspapers, not in Hindu, but in two different newspapers. Please have a look at it. Please have a look at it and tell me, did we discuss anything regarding these concepts in the classroom? Please do let me know. Because every now and then I'll keep on asking you to read newspapers. You should understand why I ask you to read newspapers. What is the point behind it? For example, the first article is regarding NABFID, National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development. Did we discuss the model of NABFID? Yes. Did I tell you NABFID will be issuing bonds in the market to raise money? They will borrow from the market, lend, right, etc. Yes, this is exactly what is given in the article on NABFID. In addition to that, certain basic concepts regarding NABFID has been provided. So that's the reason I keep on telling you people, read newspapers. Right? Read one business newspaper every day. Right? What about this article? Yesterday itself, we had a basic idea. We had a look at the idea of trade agreements. Yes or no? Trade agreements. And I told you, generally, you will come across a certain terminology such as CECA, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, etc. And I said, don't worry, these are basically the agreements, free trade agreements. Now, in this context, I told you one more point also. That is, if you remember, there was a term called as PTA and there was a EFTA. Yes or no? There was a term called as PTA, right? One situation or one type of agreement, PTA, then FTA. And I told you the difference between PTA and FTA is that in PTA we cover only small part of the trade between the countries, whereas in the context of FTA we will cover larger part of the trade, not a very small one, very large part of the trade, where most of the trade would be covered. Let me prove that point to you. Let me simply prove that point to you. If you look at this article, if you look at this article, please look at the third column. Please look at the third column and tell me, is this agreement covering most of the trade that is being conducted between India and UAE or not? In fact, I'm basically underlining the point that you're supposed to focus upon, right? The UAE as well as India, are they not covering most of the trade that is conducted between both of them? Answer is right in front of you. Can you call this as a PTA? No, you'll simply refer to this as a FTA, right? Free trade agreement. And within this also, please have a look at this. They are trying to hold negotiations for data sharing, for sharing of the data. Now, I told you this point as well. Whenever you talk about FTA or PTA, etc., we generally focus on goods and services trade. Yes or no? We generally focus on the goods and services trade. But if you talk about CEPA, CECA, etc., it's not just a trade in goods and services, it is beyond the trade in goods and services. It will include goods and services, no doubt. It's a trade agreement. So it will include goods and services, but beyond goods and services, we will talk about, if you remember, I told you, intellectual property rights. We will talk about investments. And for example, in this article, you will realize that beyond goods and services, we are also having an agreement regarding data sharing. That is the point they are trying to make in that particular article. Okay. So with this caveat, let's continue from where we left off yesterday. Let's continue from where we actually left off from yesterday. And those who are asking yesterday, right, about RBI committees, RBI committee, did you find article regarding RBI committee in other newspapers? Forget about only newspaper. Did you just at least check in, let's say, the Google? Under Google, did you find out that there is one committee which has given recommendation to Reserve Bank of India? Right. In fact, I told you that yesterday. Okay. So that is what the point I'm trying to make here. Please do not restrict your reading to only books. Again and again, almost every alternate, I keep on reminding you this. Do not restrict your reading only to the books. No, that is not sufficient. Should you read only Hindu? As far as I am concerned, for GS paper 3, that is also not sufficient. You will have to go beyond Hindu. Try to read at least one additional newspaper, specifically a business newspaper. Okay. Now, let's continue. Yesterday, we've discussed the idea for economic integration. That is the idea of the trade agreements. We have discussed a PTA, we have discussed FTA, and there is one more interesting question before I go forward. Sir, are your lectures sufficient? Please tell me if I've ever told that look only at my lectures, don't read anything else. Please do let me know if I've ever told you this. I will never do that, because I know for a fact if you stick to only lectures, what will you do after, let's say, 1 month? Of course, yes. I hope you understand. Of course, yes. There will be a lot of current affairs. For example, yesterday, right, I told you, Kanungu Committee, RBS Committee, Kanungu Committee. You will not get that in the book. And I have not discussed that in the classroom. Why? It was there in the newspaper yesterday. Can I give you one more example? Today's newspapers, not Hindu, but that's a problem. Not Hindu. There was a recommendation regarding one committee on cooperatives. Let me see if anybody has read the newspapers. Apart from Hindu, there was a discussion regarding a panel or a committee for cooperatives. Anybody? Anybody has read regarding that? A committee or a panel which has been set up by the government for cooperatives. And Government of India, that is a Minister for Cooperation, has asked this committee to give recommendations in the next 1 month. So automatically that committee regarding cooperatives will become very, very relevant to you, very, very important to you. Right? That's the reason. Keep on reading current affairs. Do not skip it. It's an indispensable part of your preparation. Do not miss it. Now, with that caveat, let's start. India and FTA. Now, over a period of time, India has signed multiple free trade agreements. Multiple trade agreements have been signed by the government. But even today, you will realize that I'll discuss certain the observations made by Niti Aayog. You will realize that the advantage of signing an FTA, the government of India, or let's say the Indian economy, is not getting large advantage of this FTA. On the contrary, it is other countries which are the part of the FTA which are getting the majority of the benefit. Sir, what do you mean by this? I'll start with a very simple example and I'll ask you a question. Please do let me know. Imagine there are two countries, A and B, who are conducting trade with each other. A will export, let's say, $10 billion worth of goods and services to B, and B will export, let's say, $40 billion worth of goods and services to A. What is the total trade? Let me know. What is the total trade? Bilateral trade between A and B? Bilateral trade is $50 billion. Very simple. 10 plus 40, $50 billion. Now, let's say both the countries A and B will sign a free trade agreement. I repeat, both A and B will sign the free trade agreement. And when both A and B will sign the free trade agreement, what do you expect? The overall trade between both the countries should increase. Any problem here? The overall trade between both of the countries should increase. Now, let me say from $50 billion, the overall trade between both of the countries will increase, let's say, to $80 billion. From $50 billion, the overall trade has increased to $80 billion. So has the bilateral trade increased because of the trade agreement? And this should happen, by the way. Anybody has a doubt here? If both A and B will sign the free trade agreement, don't you think the trade between both of them should increase? That is exactly what has happened. So overall trade has increased. But what if I were to say now, after signing the agreement, from A to B, the exports have increased to $20 billion. And from B to A, the exports have increased to $60 billion. Simple question to all of you. Please have a look at this. Simple question to all of you. When the trade agreement has been signed, which of the two countries is getting more benefit? I'll repeat the statement. when this trade agreement has been signed, which of the two countries is getting more benefit? I'm not saying that there is no benefit. Both are getting the benefit. But which is getting more benefit? All of you will agree country B will get more benefit? Let me know. Some of you are saying country A. My dear, please look at the numbers. I'm not giving very big numbers also. I'm giving very, very simple numbers. So from B, until now, exports were 40 billion. Now it has increased to 60 billion, which means exports have increased by 20 billion for country B. Whereas for country A, earlier it was 10 billion, now it has become 20 billion. So the exports from the country A have increased by 10 billion. At least now it should be very clear. It is the country B which will get the majority benefit of the agreement. And I'll prove it to you. What was the trade deficit here? What was the trade deficit under the first situation? The trade deficit under the first situation was $30 billion. $30 billion. Some of you are saying 40. No, my dear. 40 minus 10. At $30 billion. Trade deficit of country A was $30 billion. Now, what is the trade deficit? $40 billion. So the agreement has been signed. Agreement has been signed, but the country A is not getting the benefit, right? Compared to country B, country A is not getting more benefit. Any difficulty here? Any difficulty? Right? Can I go forward? But sir, in terms of percentages, my dear, don't worry about percentages. Talk absolute numbers. Talk absolute numbers. Don't worry about percentages. Talk about absolute numbers. Right? So country A's trade deficit earlier was 30 billion. Now it has become 40 billion. So the argument is simple here. Right? I'll give you the same thing in terms of statement. Let me know if there is any difficulty. I've taken one example. As per Niti Aayog survey, Niti Aayog says that in the year 2010, there's a free trade agreement between India and ASEAN. I repeat, in the year 2010, there's a free trade agreement that was signed between India and ASEAN. What is ASEAN? ASEAN is another group of countries, Association of Southeast Nations. I'm pretty sure you've heard of this. ASEAN is a group of 10 countries, Association of Southeast Nations. So in the year 2010, there was a trade agreement signed between India and ASEAN. And the Niti Aayog has conducted a survey from 2011 to 2017 covering that period. Have a look at this. The trade deficit, India's trade deficit between 11 to 17 has doubled from $5 billion to $10 billion. And during the same period of time, the trade also has increased from 50 billion to 70 billion. Now, based on this statement and what you have discussed so far, can I simply say majority of the benefit of the trade agreement is enjoyed by ASEAN, not by India? Let me know. Majority of the trade benefit, India is also enjoying benefit. I'm not saying India is not enjoying benefit. Right? So majority of the trade benefit because of the trade agreement is enjoyed by ASEAN, not by India. And have a look at this. Out of 21 sectors which were covered under the trade agreement, 13 sectors, the trade deficit has actually increased. In 13 of the sectors which were covered under the trade agreement, the trade deficit has actually widened. It has increased. And have a look at this. The FTAs, whenever FTAs are signed, FTAs will make imports cheaper into India. I'll repeat it. When FTAs are signed, FTAs will make imports cheaper into India. And when imports will become cheaper, don't you think automatically the domestic manufacturers would be affected by this? Shall we go to the next one? Right, shall we go to the next point? When the imports will become cheaper, for example, imagine until now, your friend is back. Until now, you're importing this bottle. Tax rate was 10%. Now you have signed the free trade agreement. The tax rate will be reduced from 10% to 0%. Tax rate will be reduced from 10% to 0%. So what will happen to the cost of imports? Cost of imports will become cheaper. And if imports will become cheaper, what will happen to the market prices of the imports become lower. That will increase their competitiveness in India and will affect domestic manufacturing. That is the third point. And the fourth point, overall, if you look at the overall trade that India is doing with all the trading partners with whom we have the trade agreement, we now realize that the imports value, that is the value of the imports, is much, much higher than the value of the exports. The value of the imports is much, much higher compared to value of exports, which means again, same, trade deficit has become wider. So this has been the experience of India. This has been the experience of India in the context of the free trade agreements that they have signed with other countries. Done? So these are some of the things. Please be very, very careful. And that is the reason. Right now, government of India, whenever they want to sign the trade agreement, right? Have a look at this. Now, government of India, whenever they sign the trade agreement, they are introducing something called as a compulsory review mechanism. Compulsory review mechanism. What is this idea of a compulsory review mechanism? For example, imagine there are two countries A and B who will sign the free trade agreement. Country A will put a clause in the agreement saying that after 10 years, we will review the whole agreement. We'll simply review the whole agreement, which means after 10 years, we will come back. We will see whether the agreement is working in our favor or more of your favor. If it is not working to protect our interest, let's revise the agreement. That is basically the idea of a review mechanism that government of India is basically saying we want under the free trade agreements or FTAs. Done? Now, why? Why is that FTAs in case of India, when we sign FTAs, they are not providing good benefit or more benefit to us. Why they provide more benefit to other countries? Why? What is the reason? Right? And what factors will determine how FTAs will become successful or not successful? Point number one. Imagine you are covering one sector in the FTA. What if this sector is not very well developed in a country? Think of it. I'll repeat the point again and I'll give you an example also. Imagine there are two countries A and B who will sign the free trade agreement, and one of the sectors that is covered under the free trade agreement, that sector is not developed in the country A. Now please tell me, if this sector is not very well developed, do you think exports will increase more from country A to country B? Do you think the free trade agreement will provide benefit to the country A? Answer is no. Can I give you one example? Let me know whether this is right aptly applicable or not. Imagine India will sign a free trade agreement with any country, and one of the sector that we are going to cover right now, one of the sector that we are going to cover in this the free trade agreement is electric vehicles. One of the sectors we are going to cover will be electric vehicles. Now, please tell me, is India a developed country in terms of electric vehicle technology? Think of it, right? Do we have sufficient technology to manufacture very qualitative, cheaper electric vehicles? Those who are saying yes, please review the answer. What is the proof you have? Right? I'll give you an example. Government of India, in order to promote electric vehicle manufacturing, they are giving subsidies. Don't you think yesterday also we have discussed this? FAME initiative. FAME initiative, right? We are basically providing incentives in order to promote production in India, which means we do not have large number of players who are actually producing electric vehicles. We want them to produce. That is the precise reason. Is it a developed sector in India? Can you say this is a developed sector? No, it is yet to become a developed sector. So whether the FTA is successful or not, whether it will provide benefit or not, depends on what sector will be covered under the FTA. Second, removal of non-tariff barriers. Because generally when you sign the agreements, you will try to reduce the tariff barriers. You will try to reduce and eliminate non-tariff barriers. What if other countries, that is country B, will impose non-tariff barriers now? Let me know. Yesterday we have discussed this also. Non-tariff barriers are much more, right, much more impactful in terms of reducing trade, right? We have discussed, we have proved it also yesterday. So under this trade agreement, both A and B will agree, we will reduce and eliminate tariffs, taxes. But what if I say country B will impose non-tariff barriers? Don't you think in that situation, exports will not increase, exports from country will further go down? That is the second point. Third one, income of the countries with whom we are signing the agreement. Income of the countries with whom we are signing the agreement. Let me give a very simple example. Imagine country A will sign a free trade agreement with country B whose GDP is, let's say, $5 trillion. $5 trillion. Country A will sign another free trade agreement with another country C whose GDP is $500 million. Now, please tell me, from country B, where do you think your export potential will be more? Think of it. Think of it. Where do you think you have more export potential if you are exporter from country A? Don't you think you will have more export potential sending it to country B? Or some of you are saying country C. My dear, GDP. What is GDP? Let me know. What is GDP? GDP, don't you think that represents consumption of goods and services? Let me know. Don't you think that represents consumption of goods and services? So, a very difficult point to understand. Let me throw example at you. India, USA, India, Kenya. Now tell me, where do you think if you are the exporter, right? Where do you think you have more potential to earn more revenue by exporting more? You have more potential to earn revenue by exporting to Kenya. At least now the point should be clear. Don't you think the market of the consumer, that is also very important? That is what the point I'm trying to make here. For example, now tell me, does India have a free trade agreement with USA? The largest economy in the world. Does India have a free trade agreement with USA? Absolutely no. We have free trade agreement with other countries, no doubt. But many large consumer markets are there in the world, such as USA, Europe, Britain, with whom we are yet to have free trade agreement. That is also one of the factors. And fourth one, whether the relaxations provided under the trade agreement and MFN for other countries. Right? What kind of relaxations are there under the trade agreement, and compare that with the MFN. Let me explain this to you, slightly technical. And as far as I'm concerned, please by heart these points. Please by heart. Why? I'll tell you. You can search the books. In the books, it is not there. I will tell you from where I've taken this information. I've taken this from Economic Survey. I hope you understand. In the books, you will not get this information. I've taken this information from this year's Economic Survey, which means automatically this is very important for you. Now, let me explain this. The relaxations that will be provided under the trade agreement and MFN. Now, let's start. Imagine country A, it is conducting trade with three countries, B, C, and D. B, C, as well as D. And the MFN status has been given to all the three countries. And let's say this bottle will be exported from country B, country C, as well as country D. Now, if there is no free trade agreement with anyone, and if all the three countries are given MFN status, don't you think the tax rate applicable should be same for all of them? Let me know. Should be same for all of them? Yes or no? Yesterday we have discussed this. Most favored nation. And what if I say the tax rate applicable is 0.5? The tax rate which is applicable on this bottle is 0.5 when it will drop, when it will land into India. Now let's say A and B will sign the agreement. A and B will sign a free trade agreement. And when they sign the free trade agreement, A will accept and say, whenever this bottle will come from B, I will not impose any tax. I will reduce it to 0%. I will not impose any tax. I will simply reduce it to 0%. Now please tell me, will the country B's exporter get a huge benefit because of this free trade agreement? Look at the tax rates. Please look at the tax rates. Those who are saying yes, please look at the tax rates. Right? Earlier the tax rate was 0.5. Now it will be reduced to 0. Please tell me, will the exports from country B, that is in terms of bottle, will they expand because of this free trade agreement? Of course, no. Why? Even now, the bottles which are coming from country C and country D are competitive enough. Right? Even now, they are competitive enough. Now, I'll add one more point here. What if this country B is USA and country C is China? Please tell me. Even though you signed the free trade agreement with the USA, don't you think China's bottles, even though you're imposing 0.5% tax on it, even then they will be much more cheaper in India? Does it make sense to you or not? Right? Does it make sense to you or not? Because this is China, by the way. One is USA, you are giving 0.5% benefit to them. Another one is China. You might impose a tax of 0.5, but by default, their cost of production is very less. Their market prices are very less. So don't you think even by signing the free trade agreement, country B will not get any benefit or marginal negligible benefit because of the FTA? That is the fourth point here. The relaxations that are provided under the trade agreement and what is the MFN rate for other countries. That is also having a huge impact whether the FTAs will be successful or not very successful. These are certain very important points. Now, what are the issues faced in India? What are the problems faced by Indian manufacturers and exporters? Point number one, cost of logistics in India is higher. You will come across this very often. Please remember this. Cost of logistics in India is very, very high. Now, before you start typing, sir, what do you mean by logistics here? Please understand this. Logistics simply refers to various activities, set of activities that are supposed to be undertaken to move the product. I'll repeat it again. What do you mean by logistics? Logistics refers to the set of group of activities that needs to be undertaken to move the product from point 1 to point 2. For example, transportation. Yes or no? Is transportation part of logistics? What about storage and warehousing? What about storage and warehousing? What about the third one here? Transportation, storage, warehousing, packaging. Is packaging also part of transportation? I'm sorry, logistics. Answer is yes. So whenever you want to move this product, right? Let's say you're a manufacturer. You have manufactured at this point. You want to sell the bottle from point 1 in the market, that is point 2. So what you will do now? You will pack the product. You will transport the product. And you will also store the product. All of these put together is called as logistics. The cost of logistics in case of India is higher. The government of India says the cost of logistics is in the range of 13 to 14%. Cost of logistics in case of India is around 13 to 14%. A simple question to all of you. When the cost of logistics is, let's say, 13%, what will happen to the market price? Will the market price be higher or lower? Let me know. If the cost of logistics is 13%, 14%, don't you think that will increase the market prices? If the market, some of you are saying lower. My dear, in China, the cost of logistics is 8%. In developed economies, the cost of logistics is around 6 to 8%, which means in a developed country, same activities are incurred, they will spend 6% of GDP. In India, we are spending 14% of GDP. So don't you think if the cost of logistics is higher, automatically market prices would be higher? If the market prices are higher, what will happen to the export competitiveness? What will happen to export competitiveness? Export competitiveness automatically will be lower, right? Are some of you saying export competitiveness will be higher? No, export competitiveness will be lower. Can I go to the next point here? Second one, higher interest rate in the domestic market compared to other countries. I've explained this yesterday. Do you remember it? Higher interest rate in the domestic market compared to other countries. That is, in case of India, interest rate on the loans that are given is on a higher side. But in other countries, you take China, you take European market, you take USA market, interest rates will be around 3%, 4%. So in case of India, 8%, 9%. In case of Europe, right, let's say 3%. Right now, don't you think because of a difference in the interest rate, their market cost would be lower compared to us? Yes or no? The competitiveness for Indian exports will automatically become lower because of higher interest rate. Right, and that's the reason. I hope remember yesterday I've discussed one scheme with you, interest equalization scheme. Do you remember this? Interest equalization scheme in order to address this particular discrepancy itself. Okay, so higher interest rate is also a problem. Trade barriers are increasing. That is also a problem. For example, in recent times, please tell me, in recent times, during the period of the pandemic, whether the countries have increased the barriers or have they reduced the trade barriers? Let me know. Right, in the last 2 years, that is 2021, 2022, etc., have the global economies, have they increased the trade barriers or have they decreased the trade barriers? The trade barriers have actually increased. The trade barriers have actually increased. For example, in the context of India itself, what is this idea of government of India imposing restriction over exports of rice, restriction over exports of sugar, restriction on exports of wheat, having higher taxes on import of electronic products? What is this? Is it not a trade barrier? So in the last couple of years, right, in the global market, not just India, the global market also, it has been found that the trade barriers have been increasing. And when the trade barrier increases, automatically your exports would be affected. Next one, global slowdown as well as inflation in the Western markets. Inflation is there in USA. That's a cause of concern for USA. Inflation in European market. Cause of a recession. Germany is facing recession now. Now, please tell me, if your markets are facing inflation and recession, slowdown like this, will your exports increase? Does it make any sense to you? Will your exports increase? Of course, no, your exports will not increase, your exports will come down. So these are some of the issues that is being faced by Indian exporters in the last couple of years. Done? Right, so these are some of the things. And yesterday, if you remember, I've discussed schemes which have been implemented by the government to promote exports from India. For example, we discussed RODTEP, remission of duties and taxes on export products. Yesterday we have discussed, please revise. Second one was a PLI, production linked incentives. Yesterday we have discussed this. Third one, interest equalization scheme, IES. That is also one more very important reform, or let's say measure, that has been implemented by the government to promote exports. Please revise. Sir, are these the only schemes to promote exports? Of course, no. Of course, no. There are many more schemes. We'll keep on discussing. When I take up industries, we'll discuss Make in India initiative, Startup India initiative. When I take up agriculture, we'll discuss one district to one product initiative. So there are many schemes which have been implemented by the government in order to promote more and more exports. These are some of them. Okay, done. Right, so next, this is the end of the chapter. Any issue in the chapter? Otherwise, we'll go to the next chapter. Before the break, we'll solve certain questions today, and at the end also, we'll solve certain questions. So if you do not have any question, I'm sorry, if you do not have any doubts, we'll go forward to the next chapter. FTA issue point 1. FTA issue point 1. Right, for this reason only I explain this. The trade agreements have been signed. One trade agreement that India has with another country, a group of countries, is ASEAN. We have signed a trade agreement, and this trade agreement was signed in 2010, has come into force from 2011. And what we have seen is, over a period of time, the total trade has increased. The total trade has increased. But during the same period of time, where the trade has increased, India's trade deficit with ASEAN countries has increased. Exactly the same point. Exactly the same point that I discussed before taking that particular slide. Overall trade has increased, but at the same point of time, trade deficit also has increased. Okay, that is the basic idea. Success of FTA, fourth point. Again, I'll repeat it, understand this carefully. You have trading partners, and these trading partners are given MFN status, which means all these trading partners have to be treated in the same way. You cannot make any bias, you cannot have discretion. What I said was, imagine from country B, C, and D, this bottle will be imported into India. And right now, before the trade agreement is signed, tax rate applicable is 0.5%. Now, A will sign, that is, India will sign a trade agreement with country B. And as a result of this, 0.5% will be reduced to zero. Then I'm saying, although the tax rate applicable is 0%, exporter from country B will not get a huge benefit, because the other countries will experience or will face a tax rate of 0.5%. You're reducing the tax rate benefit from 0.5 to 0%, hardly a change of 0.5%. That will not provide a huge benefit to the exporter from country B. Okay, done? Right, so some of you are asking, what is non-tariff barrier? My dear, we have discussed this yesterday. Non-tariff barrier, tariff barrier, non-tariff barrier, quotas, etc., etc. If you do not revise, everything looks very, very new to you. Please revise. My recommendation to you people will be, please revise. Okay. Now, we'll take up the questions before the break. Don't worry. We'll take up the questions before the break. Let me start with another chapter. Let me start with the next chapter here. That is a concept of subsidies. Now, before I start, here is a very important point. We'll discuss a lot of current affairs in this chapter. We'll discuss lot of current affairs. Now, those who are asking, why are you skipping questions? Why are you skipping what I am saying? Did I not say we'll discuss questions before the break? Let me know. Did I not say that we'll discuss the questions? Don't worry. I know EFT, financial market questions are left out. We'll discuss that. I know international trade questions are also there. I'll discuss that. Pakka, promise. Right? I'm promising. Don't worry. We'll discuss it. Right? So listen to what I say first. I said we'll discuss it before the break. Don't worry. Now, I'll discuss a lot of current affairs in the concept of subsidies. That's a point number one. Right? Point number two. Point number two is, the books generally do not have a separate chapter on subsidies. Do not search, right? Only 1 or 2 pages on subsidies is given. But as far as I'm concerned, the concept of subsidy is very much relevant, very important for UPSC examination. Right, that's the reason we'll have a detailed discussion on this idea. We'll start with the definition of subsidies. We'll discuss certain types of subsidies. Then we'll discuss a direct benefit transfer. Every day, at least once in the newspaper, this term direct benefit transfer is being discussed. Then we'll have a look at a current affairs topic, concept of e-rupee. E-rupee, right? We'll have a discussion on that. And finally, WTO and subsidies. That is, if you remember yesterday, there was one point under WTO. There was one point under WTO. There was one agreement on agriculture. And I said, when I take up subsidies, we'll have a discussion regarding agriculture subsidies. Today, we'll have a discussion. Don't worry. Now, let's start. What do you mean by the term subsidy? What do you mean by the term subsidy? Subsidy refers to a benefit provided by the government to a company or an individual or a family. I'll repeat the statement here. What do you mean by subsidy? Subsidy refers to a benefit, right? A benefit that is provided by the government either to an individual or to a company or to a family. I'll give a very simple example. Let me know. First one, for an individual, PM Kisan scheme. Have you heard of this? PM Kisan scheme. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Under PM Kisan scheme, Government of India provides annually 6,000 rupees per farmer. Annually, Government of India will provide 6,000 rupees per farmer. Now, simple question to you people. First, is it a subsidy? Let me know. Is it a subsidy? Can I go forward? Is it a subsidy? Answer is yes. Second, is it not given to an individual? Is it not given to an individual? Again, the answer is yes. Now, I'll give you one more example. LPG subsidy. LPG subsidy. Government of India has a scheme where LPG subsidy is provided to the beneficiaries. Now, please tell me, is LPG subsidy provided to every one of us or to a family? Is it given for every individual or to a household or a family? It is given for a household or a family. Any difficulty here? And the third one, for a company. Subsidies are given to a company. Let me take an example that we have discussed yesterday. MEIS. Tell me, MEIS, is it not a subsidy that is given by the government to a company? Does it make sense now? Does it make sense? Does the definition make sense? I'll explain the second part also. Right? What is a subsidy? It is a benefit that is given by the government either to an individual or to a company or to a household or a family. But there is one more component here. This benefit can be in the form of a cash, can be in the form of kind. Otherwise, it simply means not in the form of cash. Right? I'll give you example for this also. Under PM Kisan scheme, I said Government of India per year will provide 6,000 rupees per farmer. I said Government of India will provide 6,000 rupees per farmer. Can I call this as a cash subsidy? Let me know. Can I call this as a cash subsidy now? Answer is yes. I'll give you example of a kind subsidy. There is a scheme of Government of India, National Food Security Act. We'll discuss this. Don't worry. We'll discuss this separately. National Food Security Act. Under the National Food Security Act, government will tell you, if there is a beneficiary, I will give the beneficiary 5 kgs of food grains. And government is saying, we will give you 5 kgs of food grains. Now, please tell me, this 5 kgs of food grains, will you call this as a cash subsidy or a kind subsidy? I hope you understand this point now. Is it a cash subsidy or a kind subsidy? It is a kind subsidy. Right? So that is basically the idea. Subsidies are nothing but these are the benefits that is provided by the government to the beneficiaries. The beneficiary could be a single person, individual. The beneficiary could be a company. The beneficiary could be a family also. But this subsidy, that is a benefit, can be given in the form of right, the cash, or it can be given in the form of right, the kind. So you will see many examples, and do not buy at all the schemes here for a very simple reason. In case of India, there are more than 300 schemes. I hope you understand my point here. In India, there are more than 300 schemes. Do not buy at the names of all the schemes. Not at all necessary. Right? Yes, certain schemes, questions will come. My recommendation is, in the last 1 year, any scheme that is there in the newspaper, please read it. Is it okay? There are more than 300 schemes. Right? Don't read all the 300. It's of no use for you. Right? You can read. I'm not questioning your ability. But my argument is, right, basically, all the 300, you will take 1 year to buy heart them. So what you need to do? Focus on the schemes which were asked in the last 1 year. Okay, now that is basically the definition of subsidy. Now, what is the need for subsidy? Why should government provide subsidies to the people, or let's say houses, or let's say right, to the companies? What is the need? Point number 1, to provide social welfare, to achieve social welfare or social objective. Right? Let me give a very simple example here. PM Kisan scheme. Take one example, PM Kisan scheme. Right? Why do you think Government of India will provide 6,000 rupees to farmers? Reason is simple. Government wants farmers to have certain amount of money to purchase seeds, to purchase fertilizers, to use it for any purpose. Right? That is one objective. Second objective is, don't you think farmers, large number of them in India, are very poor? Let me know. Large number of farmers in India are very, very poor. Even the 6,000 rupee benefit, 6,000 rupee assistance will be a huge, right, incentive for them, will be a huge amount of money for them. So that is one, it will help Government of India achieve social welfare, social objective. And second, it will also improve, right, production. It will improve consumption of better inputs while producing, while manufacturing, etc. It will help in controlling prices. It will help in controlling prices. How? Let me prove it. Imagine I'm a farmer. I'm not, but imagine I'm a farmer. Now I will purchase the fertilizers from the market, and we'll discuss regarding this. Give me some time. Right now, Government of India provides a lot of subsidies and ensures that price of fertilizers is very low. Right? Let me know if there is any difficulty. Fertilizers which is available in the market, government provides a lot of subsidies and ensures that that fertilizer is available at a cheaper price to me. But imagine government will not provide any subsidy for the fertilizer. Think of it now. Imagine Government of India will not provide any subsidies on the fertilizer. The cost of fertilizer will increase. What will happen to cost of production? What will happen to cost of production? Cost of production will also increase. And what will happen to market prices of food grains? Automatically, what will happen to market prices of the food grains? Market prices of the food grains automatically will increase. Can I give you a connection here? Current affairs connection. In the last 2 months, have you seen the news that milk prices in India have gone up? Let me know. In the last 2 to 3 months, have you seen the newspaper articles where they say that milk prices have gone up? One of the reason why milk prices have gone up is because of higher fodder prices. Higher fodder prices. That is, if you want to produce milk, you'll have to feed the animals. What will you feed? Fodder. If the fodder prices has increased, that is basically an input. What will happen to the production cost of the milk? Production cost of the milk will also increase. That is basically the same idea. So if Government of India will not provide subsidies for the fertilizer, can we say market prices will increase? Of course, yes. Right. So now subsidies are used to control prices in the market. What about a scheme such as MEIS? What about schemes such as a PLI? Right? Don't you think these kind of schemes are implemented by the government? Subsidies, of course, to promote exports from India. Yes or no? To promote more and more exports from India. So these are some of the reasons why there is a need for having subsidies. Now, what is the criticism? What is the issue? What is the criticism against the subsidy policy of the government? First and foremost, the Government of India, or even for that matter state government, whenever they provide subsidies, their expenditure will increase, revenue deficit will increase, and that will increase the fiscal deficit. Is the first point clear with all of you? Right? Financial implications. Financial implications. That is, revenue expenditure increases, RD increases, and FD increases. That is the first criticism against a subsidy policy of the government. Second point, ill targeting. Subsidies are provided, but for whom we are supposed to provide subsidies, we do not target these subsidies. For example, tell me now, if I tell you that earlier, all the houses in India would get LPG subsidy. Is it fair? Should all the houses get LPG subsidy? Think of it. Does it make sense to you? A billionaire, a crorepati, right? Who has to pay, let's say, 800,000 rupees or 1200 rupees for a cylinder? They are getting cylinders at 400 rupees, 300 rupees. Don't you think these kind of subsidies, whenever government will provide, government has to target the beneficiaries? Is it okay? Government has to target. Target means what? Find out who is the correct beneficiary and then start providing the subsidies. Any problem here? Many of these subsidies we do not have targeting even today. I'll repeat it. Many of the subsidies which are provided by governments, we do not have targeting. For example, fertilizer subsidies. Please tell me, if a farmer has 200 hectares of land and another farmer has 2 hectares of land, both the farmers get the subsidies on fertilizers. Is it fair? Think of it. Is it fair? No. Right? Why? A farmer who has 200 hectares of target simply means the farmer is very rich. Right? This farmer, of course, can pay the market prices and purchase. But we don't do that. We do not do that. Fertilizer subsidies, it is given to everybody. Even when you go to the market and you want to purchase fertilizers, even you will get a fertilizer subsidy. Right? So that is basically the idea. Yield targeting. We need to target the beneficiaries. It doesn't allow for optimal utilization of resources. Let me explain this. Many of the states provide free electricity for agriculture sector. Understand this. Many of the states provide free electricity for agriculture sector. Now imagine a farmer is there. Again, it is not a criticism against all the farmers. Just an example. Imagine there is a farmer who will get the free electricity. Please tell me, will they use the free electricity efficiently to irrigate the land? Let me know. Right? Do you think they'll be utilizing this free electricity to irrigate the land? Of course no. Of course no. Right? They'll simply use this electricity more and more, and right, they will not be focused about paying electricity bills because government will pay it. So that is basically the idea of doesn't allow for optimal utilization of resources. And right, there are students who are saying, sir, how can a farmer have 200 hectares? My dear, don't worry about hectares. This is a problem. Don't worry about this. I'll just give you examples. Have you heard of farmers who are very rich or not? At least tell me now. Farmers who are very rich, farmers who are very poor. Have you heard of the term tenant farmers? Right? What do you mean by tenant farmer? Tenant farmer is a farmer or a cultivator who is going to be working on somebody else's land. They don't even have their own land. They'll be working on somebody else's land on lease basis. Right? That is the point I'm trying to make here. Don't say, sir, how can a farmer have 200 hectares? Don't write that. I even have told you this. Whenever I give you examples, it is to make you understand. Don't write, imagine a farmer has 200 hectares. Imagine one more farmer has 2 hectares. You already have crossed 250 word limit. Okay, so again, don't focus on that. Focus on the concept behind that. Now, doesn't allow for optimal utilization of the resources. I gave you one example. Many states in India provide free electricity for agriculture. And I said that in case of free electricity, farmers will not be worried about electricity bill. They'll keep on pumping water and supplying it in the land. Now, don't you think if the farmers do this very often, the water level, underground water level will also go down? Let me know. The underground water level will also go down. And do you think that is good situation for India's agriculture sector? Again, the answer is no. Right? Next, will create inefficiency in the market. Will create a huge inefficiency in the market. Right? Now, how it will create huge inefficiency? There is something called as MSP. Today, I will tell you the term MSP. Right? Tomorrow, we'll have a complete discussion on this. There is a term called as MSP. Don't worry about definition. Do not worry about anything. Focus on the example. MSP is nothing but the price which will be paid by the government and procure the food grains. Any difficulty in understanding the definition here? The price that is decided by the government and paid by the government when they purchase food grain, that is called as MSP, minimum support price. Now focus again, right? Listen to my lecture first. Listen to my lecture. Tomorrow you will look at the full form. You'll understand how they decide, for what crops they will give. Have patience. Have patience. Listen to what I discuss first. Now imagine there are two crops, X and Y. Government will announce for X the MSP will be 2000 rupees and for Y MSP will be 1000 rupees. Simple question to you. If MSP is this much, tell me, farmers will cultivate more of X or more of Y? Let me know. Right? Will the farmers cultivate more of X or more of Y? Right answer is more of X. Those who are saying Y, please tell me why. This Y. Those who are saying, sir, farmers will cultivate more of Y, please tell me why. Don't you think farmers, in order to earn more income, will cultivate this crop, sell it in the market, right, to the government and get more income? I hope you understand. Does it make sense or not? So now, when farmers will cultivate more of X, what will happen to cultivation of Y? The cultivation and production of Y will go down. And when production of Y will go down, what will happen to supply? Supply will also go down. And now what will happen to market prices? What will happen to market prices? Market prices will start increasing. And on the other side, X production will be very high. All the farmers will not sell it to government, which also means supply of X in the market increases. And when the supply of X will increase, what will happen to market prices here? What will happen to market prices? Market prices will start going down. Can I call this as a policy creating inefficiency in the market? Let me know. The MSP policy is creating inefficiency in the market. That is, supply and demand mismatches are getting created because of policy of the government. Right? So these are some of the criticisms regarding the policies, that is the subsidy policies of the government. Can we go to the next one? Can we go to the next one now? Okay. So who will provide subsidies? My dear, subsidies in case of India are provided by central government also. Many subsidies are provided by the center and many subsidies are provided even by the states. Even by the states. Right? You must have read in the newspaper what is happening in Karnataka, what has happened in Telangana, what has happened in Delhi. Right? So I hope you understand, subsidies are provided by the center also, can be provided by the states also. Now, what is the classification? What is the classification of subsidies? Before going forward, two very important points. This classification is not given by the government. I repeat, this classification is not given by the government. In books also, they do not carry this classification. So just a simple understanding, I'll give you examples, understand and go forward. Point number two, same subsidy can be example for more than one type of the subsidy. Is it okay? I hope you understand my second point here. Same example can be given for more than one type of subsidy. Don't say, sir, you have used the scheme earlier there. How can you say this is example of this? The same scheme can be here, here as well as here. Now let's start. Right, forget about MSP. Those are asking about MSP, I'll not answer it today. Did I say or not? We'll have a detailed discussion regarding MSP tomorrow. Right, we'll have a detailed discussion. Please have patience regarding that. Let's start. One classification is a direct, indirect. Second classification is the universal, targeted. Third classification is conditional, unconditional. And the last one is implicit and explicit. Okay, implicit and explicit. Now let me start with an example here. Let me start with an example. Right, imagine this is an example. Example 1. You want to purchase a cylinder, LPG cylinder. Okay, LPG cylinder. earlier what used to happen was, you will call up the distributor of the cylinder. I'm pretty sure all of you know there's a distributor for LPG cylinder, right? That is, right, there will be an agency nearby your home, right? Indian distributor will be there, right, etc. So there is a distributor. What earlier used to happen was, the customer will call the distributor and book a cylinder. After, let's say, 7 days or after 10 days, the cylinder will be supplied to the customer. And imagine the actual cost of the cylinder. I'll take hypothetical numbers. You don't have to buy it exact numbers, because if you're reading the newspaper, you will know LPG cylinder prices will change from 1 month to another month. So just hypothetical number. So let's say actual cost of the cylinder is 1000 rupee. So if I'm the distributor, I will bring the cylinder to your home. I will supply the cylinder. I will not collect 1000 rupees from you. What I will do is, I'll simply collect 400 rupees from you. Right? So cylinder booking is done. Cylinder is supplied. 400 rupee from the customer is collected. What about remaining 600 rupees? Remaining 600 rupees, government would provide this as a subsidy to the distributor or the company. Any difficulty in the sequencing here? Please do let me know right now. I'll repeat the sequence. Step number 1, customer will book the cylinder. Step number 2, cylinder will be supplied, but the customer will not pay 1000 rupee, customer will pay 400 rupee. And the third point is, the government will provide that 600 rupee subsidy to the cylinder company. Now, this is basically the concept of indirect subsidy. This is basically the concept of indirect subsidy. One classification, indirect subsidy. And there's a problem with indirect subsidies. Why? Please understand this. No doubt customer will pay only 400, but you please tell me, what is the guarantee that the distributor will give the cylinder only to the customer? Let me know. What is the guarantee? How can Government of India guarantee that this cylinder is going to the customer only? Because please understand this. Please understand this. Cylinders can be used for domestic purposes. Cylinders can be used for domestic purposes. That is generally around 14 kg weight. And cylinders can also be used for commercial purposes. For commercial purposes, right? For example, restaurants, roadside eateries, the chai wala, right? Or big hotels, right? Commercial purposes, around 18 to 19 kgs. Government of India, whenever they say that the cylinder is given to domestic, that is for a house, subsidy will be given. And whenever the cylinder is given to a hotel, no subsidy will be given. Taxes will be very, very high. Now, what if I'm a distributor, I'm running a hotel. Rather than sending the cylinder to you, that is the 14 plus kg cylinder to you, I will simply sell this to, or I will supply this to my hotel, and I'll tell the government, I've given this to a house and I'll take the subsidy from the government. Don't you think this is basically going to lead to lot of leakages in the system? Is it okay? Lot of leakages in the system will happen. Point number 1. Point number 2, what about fiscal burden on the government? What about fiscal burden on the government? The fiscal burden, that is the money burden on the government, would be very, very high. Are the beneficiaries getting the benefit? That is, the household, is the beneficiary getting the benefit? No way. Beneficiary is not getting the benefit. So Government of India realized, okay, there's a problem with this. And what is happening in the indirect subsidy? Please look at the definition and tell me, is it same or not? Indirect subsidy, it will involve providing the good or a service at lower prices, at subsidized prices. We have discussed the example. Please tell me whether is this indirect subsidy or not. In indirect subsidy, it will involve providing the goods or services at subsidized prices. That is an indirect subsidy. So Government of India realized, okay, there is a problem with this method. We need to change it. There's a problem. So what we have done now? Right now, the methodology that the government uses is simple. Here is a distributor. Here is a customer. If the customer will book the cylinder will be supplied to the customer at 1000 rupees. Hypothetically, 1000 rupees. Government of India says this 600 rupees subsidy, I will simply transfer into the bank account of the customer. Is it okay? I will basically transfer this 600 rupees into the bank account of the customer. Now tell me, can I divert the cylinders at subsidized prices to my hotel? Let me know. Can I divert the cylinder? I am distributor. Can I divert the cylinders to my hotel? Not possible. Even if I divert, government is not going to give subsidy to a company. It is not going to give a subsidy to a hotel. No way. Point number 2. Compare it with example 2. Now can I say government of India will know who are the beneficiaries? Let me know. Compare it with example 2. In example 1, can I say that government of India will know who are the beneficiaries, who are the customers, how many cylinders are they purchasing, etc., etc. That is basically the benefit of direct subsidy. That is basically the benefit of direct subsidy. And right, understand this. If diversion will not happen, and there was one more problem earlier, duplication. Let me explain this also. There was one more problem earlier in case of indirect subsidy for LPG, duplication. What is this duplication? Imagine there is a house, and in the house, right, let's say there is a husband and wife. H&W, husband and wife. Now have a look at this. Both husband and wife would have LPG connection. Right? Both of them will have LPG connection. And because in both of their names there is one LPG connection, they will keep on consuming LPG subsidy continuously without worrying about efficiency, without worrying about extra burden for the government, etc., etc. They'll keep on purchasing LPG cylinders one after the other. Under the new system, that is a direct benefit transfer in LPG system, Government of India clearly says one house, only one LPG connection will be provided. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. One house, only one LPG connection will be provided. Now tell me, under the new system, will the duplication also, will it be eliminated or not? Is it okay? Right, I hope you understand. In the new system, will the duplication problem, will it also be eliminated in the new system? So these are some of the benefits. These are some of the benefits of a direct subsidy. Now I'll give you the direct subsidy definition. Okay, direct subsidy definition. Direct subsidies will involve actual cash payment to the beneficiaries. Okay, the direct subsidies will involve actual cash payment to the beneficiaries. Okay, that is basically the direct subsidy. Any difficulty in understanding direct and indirect? Can I go forward? Can I go forward? Any difficulty in understanding what is a direct or what is an indirect? Right, now, let me go to the next one. Universal subsidies and targeted subsidies. Universal subsidies and targeted the subsidies. I'll give a very simple example. First one, there is a scheme implemented by the government, DBT LPG. Direct benefit transfer, LPG. DBT stands for direct benefit transfer. Now, under the direct benefit transfer for LPG, Government of India says, if one house has an income of more than 10 lakh rupees per annum, if one house has more than 10 lakh rupees per annum, that house we will not give LPG subsidy. Can I call this as a targeted subsidy? Let me know. I'll repeat it again. Understand the example, automatically understand why this is called as a targeted. Government of India, under the direct benefit transfer in LPG, this is also in Hindi referred to as PAHAL. Don't get confused. Suddenly in UPSC, Hindi names are used. In short, it is called as PAHAL, Pratyakshadarshi Hastantarit Labh. In Hindi, it is called as PAHAL. In English, it is called as DBT in LPG. So government says, if one house has an income of more than 10 lakh rupees per annum, I will not give any LPG subsidy. So imagine there are two houses. In one house, the annual income is, let's say, 8 lakh rupees. And in another house, the annual income is 80 lakh rupees. Government of India will not provide subsidy to this. Government will provide subsidy to this. Can I simply say we are identifying and targeting the beneficiaries? Done? We are identifying and targeting the beneficiaries. That is called as a targeted subsidies. Targeted, right, subsidies. Next one is universal subsidies. Universal subsidies. These subsidies are available to everyone. These subsidies are simply available to everyone. There is no distinction. Everybody will get access to this subsidy. For example, fertilizer subsidy. Is it okay? Fertilizer subsidy. No distinction. Right? Your farmer, rich farmer will go. Poor farmer will go. A tenant farmer will go. No distinction whatsoever. Everybody can purchase the fertilizer at subsidized prices. That is universal subsidy. So targeted, universal. Let me go to the next one. Conditional and unconditional. Let me start with the conditional, then we'll go to unconditional. Now, what is the basic idea of a conditional here? Please look at the statement. Please look at the statement. Many of you get confused between targeted and conditional. Please look at the statement of conditional. The conditional subsidies are linked to certain conditions such as performance or behavior. Conditional subsidies are those subsidies that are linked to certain conditions such as performance or behavior. Now, please tell me, right, in case of targeted subsidies, do you think government is going to provide subsidies based on your behavior, based on your performance? Do you think government is going to decide based on that? No, sir. Income is not a performance. Please understand. Income is not a performance. Now, let me give a very simple example. Automatically, you'll understand. Imagine there are two electric car manufacturers. FAME 2 subsidies. FAME 2 subsidies. Imagine there are two electric vehicle manufacturers. So both, right, let's say company 1, company 2. Both of these companies are eligible to get a subsidy from the government. Agreed? Both of them under FAME 2 are eligible to get the subsidies from the government. But what government says is, give me the proof that at least 50% of the components, I repeat, give me the proof that at least 50% of the components that you have used, you have purchased it from the domestic market. Can I call it as a condition? Let me know. Can I call this as a condition? Right? Basically a performance or a behavior. If you meet this condition, if you meet this criteria, only then you will get the subsidy. Imagine company 1 will meet the criteria. Company 1 will get subsidy. Company 2 will not meet the criteria. They will not give subsidy to company 2. Can I give you one more example? Performance linked incentive, PLI. We have discussed this also. Performance linked incentive. Please tell me, look at the name and tell me, don't you think the incentives that the government will provide under PLI is determined based on your performance or behavior? Yes or no? If you reach those targets, if you achieve those targets, only then government will give you subsidy. You might be eligible. I hope you understand. You might be eligible to get the subsidy. But once you meet the target, only then the government will give you subsidy. Otherwise, they will not give you subsidy. Right? That is basically the idea of conditional subsidies. Right? What about unconditional subsidies? No conditions. No performance conditions. No behavioral conditions. Nothing. Best example, PM Kisan. Tell me, PM Kisan scheme, is there any condition on the farmer to get PM Kisan subsidy? Let me know. Right? Does government of India say, you're a farmer who has cultivated 100 tons last year? Okay, take this much subsidy. You're a farmer who has cultivated only tons, right? Only 1 ton last year, no subsidy. Absolutely no. No connection to the performance or the behavior of the farmers, right? That is basically the example of unconditional subsidies. Next, implicit and explicit subsidy. Implicit and explicit subsidy. Sir, before there was 2 hectares condition. My dear, earlier when PM Kisan was implemented, many of you are correcting me. I know that. Many of you are saying, sir, but earlier there was a condition. Yes, there was a condition. Today, check it. Earlier, Government of India, when they implemented the PM Kisan initiative, the Government of India stated that we will not give it to all farmers. We will not give it to all the farmers. We will give it to only small and marginal farmers. Now, please tell me, if Government of India had kept the same idea, that is small and marginal farmers, don't you think that would be a targeted subsidy? Let me know. I'll repeat it again. Those are still finding, right? Still confused. What I'm discussing is simple. Some students said, but sir, PM Kisan has a condition like this. Earlier, it was not a condition. It was a targeting. Earlier, Government of India said, we will provide 6,000 rupees incentive, not to all the farmers, only to small and marginal farmers. And right after that, they realized, okay, other farmers we are not covering, they will not be happy with this. That's the reason this condition was removed. This limitation was actually removed. Now it is available to all the farmers. Okay, done. So next one is implicit and explicit subsidy. Implicit and explicit subsidy. Slightly technical. Understand the next point carefully. In the case of implicit, the government will control supply and also control the prices. And government clearly states for whom the subsidy will be provided, supplied or given in case of such kind of subsidies. That is, please understand, the first one is applicable to implicit. Second one, I've given the numbers already. It is applicable to explicit. Let me give you examples. Automatically you'll understand. PM Kisan. Please tell me. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Is it basically the explanation of point number 8 here? Let me know. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. Is it not just an explanation of point number 8? That is, government is clearly saying for whom we are giving the subsidies. Explicit subsidies. Right? Direct benefit transfer in LPG. PAHAL scheme. Please tell me. Direct benefit transfer in LPG. Is it not basically government stating who are the beneficiaries, who are going to be covered, etc., etc., etc.? That is explicit subsidy. Now, on the other side, I'll give you one more example. Railways. Tell me, in case of railways, is it okay if I say all the passengers who are traveling in different bogies, different coaches, the pricing of the tickets will be different? Let me know. Right, the passengers who are traveling in the railways, different coaches, different bogies, pricing will be different. For example, imagine I will go to the railway station. I will purchase a general class ticket. General class ticket. You will also come to the railway station. You will also purchase a general class ticket. Right, Mr. Mukesh Ambani will come and he will also purchase a general class ticket. Now, please don't ask me, sir, why is Mukesh Ambani traveling by railways? That is not the question to be asked. The point is very simple. In the general class, the ticket prices are very low. Any difficulty? In the general class, the ticket prices that are given will be very, very low. Very low in the sense what? Imagine, understand this very carefully. Railways, let's say, will move this bottle 1 kilometers. Again, don't remember exact numbers. UPSC will never ask you this. Right? Understand this carefully. Railways will move this bottle 1 kilometers, and railways will also move the passenger 1 kilometer. Okay, they will also move the passenger 1 kilometer. Here is a bottle, that is a good, and one is a passenger. And instead of using the term bottle, I can also use the term freight. What is the meaning of the term freight? Goods. Now please understand the next point very clearly. If the railways actually incurs a price of, let's say, 4 kilometers, I'm sorry, 4 rupees. I repeat, if the railways actually incurs a cost of 4 rupees, railways will charge passenger 1 rupee, railways will charge the freight, let's say, 6 rupees. Any difficulty? Right? Understand this carefully. I'm saying railways either to move a freight, that is a bottle, or to move a passenger, they will incur a charge of 4 rupee. But will they charge 4 rupee for both? That is a passenger as well as a freight? No. They will charge more on the freight, and they will charge the customer, that is the passenger, much lower. This is called as cross subsidization. This is referred to as cross subsidization. Any difficulty here? This is called as cross subsidization. What do you mean by cross subsidization? The consumers are different. Understand this. Consumers are different. For one set of consumers, we will charge less amount of money. To another set of consumers, will charge higher amount of money. Is it okay? Right? Is the logic okay with all of you? There are different consumers. For one set of consumers, we will charge lesser. For another set of consumers, we'll charge more. Is it not the same thing that is happening here? For passengers, they are charging very less. For transportation of a goods or freight, they are charging more. Now, please tell me, can I say government is providing subsidies to the passenger here? Let me know. Government is providing subsidies to the passenger, yes or no? Is the logic okay with all of you? But please understand this. Who is supplying railways? Who supplies the services of railways? Government. Who is controlling the prices of the tickets in the railways? Government. Government is providing subsidies, but they don't use the term subsidy. They'll simply say railway tickets. I hope you understand. Government will not use the term railway subsidy. They'll simply say the tickets which are charged for the general class will be lower. The tickets, that is the pricing for the freight transportation, will be higher. But what is the government of India doing? Government of India is providing subsidies for the people who are traveling in the general class. Right? These are implicit. Implicit means hidden. I hope you understand. These are nothing but implicit subsidy. Implicit is nothing but a hidden type of a subsidy. Again, government doesn't use the term hidden, but can you understand the concept behind it? Right? Government will charge much lesser than 4, right, to general class people, and much higher than 4 rupee for goods transportation, which means for one of them, they are providing subsidy, that is a benefit. For the others, there is no subsidy, higher prices. This is implicit subsidy. Railway ticket pricing for general class is an example of implicit subsidy. Can I go to the next one here? Can I go to the next one? But there's a different amount to all the passengers. My dear, am I talking about all the passengers or general class passengers? Please do let me know. Am I talking about all the passengers or general class passengers? I'm focused only on the general class. And there is a reason for this. Many of you might ask, why, sir? Why are you targeting only general class here? You please tell me, the poor people, a common man, will they travel in, right, AC chair car 1 or general class? Think of it, right? But there is no condition that only poor people should travel in the general class. Can I take a general class ticket and travel? Yes. Can you take a general class ticket and travel? Yes. Can the businessman take a general class ticket and travel? Of course, yes. All of us will end up consuming certain subsidies there. That is basically the concept of implicit subsidy. So, implicit subsidy and explicit subsidy. Can we go to the next now? Can we go to the next? Any difficulty here? right? So these are some of the classifications. Please have a look at it. But isn't cross subsidization in railways increase logistics cost? Of course, yes. We'll discuss railways. Don't worry. We'll discuss railways, right? We'll discuss railways. We'll discuss electricity. There is a chapter called as infrastructure. We'll discuss that next week. Don't worry. Okay, so what is explicit, right? Government clearly says no hidden subsidy. Government clearly says 6,000 rupees subsidy, right? At least now it should be clear. I use a technical term. Again, don't use it in the exam. I use a term hidden subsidy. At least now it should be clear. PM Kisan. At least now tell me, PM Kisan, is it a hidden subsidy? Let me know. PM Kisan, is it a hidden subsidy or an implicit subsidy? No, it is an explicit subsidy. Government clearly says farmers. Government says 6,000 rupees. So where is the question of providing hidden benefit there? No hidden benefit, explicitly. Okay, that is basically the idea of implicit as well as explicit subsidies. Done? Right, so this is basically one classification. Let me go to the next one. Right, let me go to the next one. One more classification. Generally, you will come across these classifications in the context of agriculture. Let's start. Input subsidy, price subsidy, export subsidy, and infrastructure subsidy. Okay, right. One is input, price, export, and infrastructure subsidy. Now, what do you mean by input subsidy? Imagine a farmer is there. Farmer will purchase electricity. Farmer will purchase fertilizer. Can I call this as inputs? Let me know. Farmer will purchase electricity. Farmer will purchase, right, let's say the seeds or fertilizer. Inputs. Government, if they provide subsidies on the inputs, that is called as input subsidy. Very easy. This classification is not at all technical. Very, very easy. Right? Any input that you purchase, government, if they provide subsidies on the inputs, that is called as input subsidy. Best example, please remember that fertilizer subsidies, subsidies on the seeds, subsidies on electricity. Next, price subsidy. It is the difference between the price at which FCI procures food grains, the price at which FCI sells under PDS. Technical thing, let me explain. Let's go point by point. What is FCI? FCI stands for Food Corporation of India. FCI stands for Food Corporation of India. Okay, that's point number one. What is PDS? Public Distribution System. Public Distribution System, PDS. Now, I'll give a very, very simple example. Don't enter into technicality today. Tomorrow, I'll show exactly how the calculation is done. How FCI will calculate, how government will calculate, etc. Tomorrow we'll have a look at it, but understand the concept here. Now, let's start. Government of India has a scheme under which food grains are distributed. Food grains are distributed to the beneficiaries. Yes or no? Food grains are distributed to the beneficiaries. Best example, National Food Security Act. Couple of minutes ago, I gave you that example. Now, Government of India will not directly go to the market and purchase food grains. I hope you understand my point here. Government of India will announce MSP. Government will not go to the market and purchase food grains. No, that is not what the government does. Government of India owns one authority by the name of Food Corporation of India. FCI, Food Corporation of India. Now, FCI will go to the market, purchase food grains. Purchase food grains. Now, that is step number one. And after purchasing food grains, they will store the food grains and they will simply give it to the states for distribution purposes. They'll simply give it to the states for distribution, giving it to beneficiaries. Now, please understand this carefully. Until last year, not today, until last year, Imagine if rice was purchased and given to the beneficiaries. The beneficiary, whenever they purchase the rice, the beneficiary would pay 3 rupees per kg. Any difficulty, please do let me know. I'll repeat it again. Until last year, not today. What is happening today, I'll tell you. Until last year, Food Corporation of India will purchase the food grain, give it to the state governments for distribution purposes. If I am the beneficiary, if government will give me 1 kg of rice, I will give how much rupees for 1 kg of rice? I will give 3 rupees per kg of rice. This is referred to as issue price. This is referred to as issue price. Now, many of you are asking me, sir, why? Why are you simply saying until last year? Right now, what is the situation? Right now, Government of India says, under NFSA, I will give 5 kgs of food grains. I will not collect anything from the beneficiaries, which is free of charge. Is the logic okay? Government now says, for this year, I will give you 5 kgs of food grains, but I will not collect anything from you. Now, please have a look at this. Can I say now issue price is 0? Let me know. Right now, can I say issue price is 0? Until last year, issue price for rice was 3 rupees. Now, what is the issue price? 0 rupees. Done? Right? Please remember this point. Let me go to the next point. Imagine issue price is 3 rupees. Now, please have a look at this. The Food Corporation of India will purchase food grains. Will they pay money here? Have a look at this. Food Corporation of India, they will purchase the food grains. Will they pay money? Yes. They will store the food grains. Expenditure? Yes. They will transport the food grains. Expenditure? Of course, yes. Right? Imagine Food Corporation of India for doing all of this has spent 40 rupees. Imagine Food Corporation of India for all of this has spent 40 rupees. But when that 1 kg of rice is given to me, until last year, I paid 3 rupees to the government, which means the price of the product was 40, but the government collected only 3 rupees from me. Can I simply say the subsidy here incurred by the government is 37 rupees? Let me know. Subsidy in this example incurred by the government is 37 rupees. Now, the same 37 rupees, I'll write it like this. Read the statement and tell me whether have I explained the same thing or not. It is the difference between the price at which FCI will purchase the food grains and the price at which FCI will sell the food grains under PDS. Is it the same thing or not? Right? Can I simply say FCI will purchase and sell? When they will purchase and sell, they will incur expenditure. And when they will sell, they'll collect a certain amount of money. Difference between that is called as, right, the price subsidy. Can I go to the third one here? Can I go to the third one? Right, export subsidy. Right, export subsidy. Export subsidy best example is MEIS. Any difficulty here? Let me know. Export subsidy, I'll finish it only in one name. Merchandise exports from India scheme. Any difficulty here? If somebody says what is MEIS, I'll simply say please look at yesterday's PPT. We have discussed this yesterday. Right? We have discussed this yesterday. So can I say MEIS is a subsidy which is given by the government to promote exports? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Infrastructure subsidy. And what is this idea of infrastructure subsidy? Whenever government will provide certain subsidies to promote or develop infrastructure, that is called as infrastructure subsidy. For example, there is an initiative of Government of India right now, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, AIF. Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, AIF, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. Now, under the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, government will provide certain amount of subsidies to promote infrastructure development. Sir, what kind of infrastructure? Will understand it under agriculture. Please have patience. So now can I say Any subsidy under AIF given by the government for development of infrastructure is basically infrastructure subsidy. Let me know. Nothing but infrastructure subsidy. So again, these are one examples. Right? There are hundreds of schemes in India, like I've told you. Hundreds of schemes are there in India. You don't have to remember all of them. Why I'm talking about AIF, we'll discuss AIF. In fact, there is one more scheme of Government of India, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. Sampada Yojana, we'll discuss that also, right? Cold warehousing is promoted, the mega food parks are promoted, infrastructure only. We'll discuss that later, have patience. But objective is simple, subsidies for promotion of infrastructure. These are called as infrastructure subsidies. Can we go to the next one? Can we go to the next one? Any difficulty in any one of them? This is the time you start asking questions if you have any. Rather than simply saying, sir, right, pick up my question, pick up my question. Price subsidy, it is a difference between the price or the expenditure that is incurred by the FCI and the price that is collected by FCI when they will sell it. That is basically the price subsidy. What is infrastructure subsidy? Whenever government will provide subsidy for the promotion, for the development or construction of infrastructure, it is called as infrastructure subsidy. My dear, the name itself is self-explanatory. The name itself is self-explanatory. Infrastructure subsidy. Now tell me, if I ask you what is infrastructure subsidy, will you simply say it is the subsidy given to promote exports? Of course no. Subsidy that is provided to develop infrastructure. Example, AIF. I said we'll discuss AIF tomorrow. Have patience. There's a slide on this. We'll have a discussion. Have patience. Okay. Now, what is input subsidy? You are a farmer. You will purchase fertilizer. Will the government provide you subsidy on the fertilizer? Let me know. Will the government provide subsidies on the fertilizer? Yes. Fertilizer is an input subsidy. Right? And by the way the people are asking question, you're basically asking me to repeat whole economy then. Right? Sir, repeat 1. Sir, repeat 2. As well as 3 and 4. How many are there? 4 are there. I hope you understand. How many are there? 4 are there. Sir, repeat 1, repeat 2, and as well repeat 3 and 4. Right? So repeat the whole thing again. Right? So understand that. Okay. Shall we go to the next one? PM Kisan can also be universal subsidy. Again, please understand, in case of PM Kisan, we are targeting only farmers. But understand this, farmer is one group. Farmer is one group. We are not basically differentiating any farmers. Right? In that case, if you take farmers as a group, right, it is a kind of a universal subsidy. Okay. Conditional subsidies. Conditional subsidies are those subsidies where the subsidies will be provided to you based on your performance or behavior. For example, I told you, under PLI, you will have to achieve sales of this much. You will have to achieve investment of this much. Only in such cases, the subsidies will be provided to you. If not, absolutely nothing. Okay, done. Difference between universal and implicit. Why do you want to understand that? Tell me, why do you want to understand that? In case of implicit, argument is simple. Hidden subsidies are provided. Hidden subsidies. Government doesn't clearly say these are subsidies. Universal subsidies, most of them will be explicit subsidies. Okay. Now, let me go forward. This is a discussion regarding classification of subsidies. Right. Next, certain types of subsidies. One subsidy that we have discussed, right? One subsidy that we have already discussed is LPG subsidy. Any difficulty? One subsidy that we have discussed already is idea of direct benefit transfer in LPG, DBTL, PERL subsidy. Right? Now, next one, fertilizer subsidy. Next concept I want to discuss with you people is fertilizer subsidy. Now, what is this idea for fertilizer subsidy? Please understand very, very careful. Now, let's start. Fertilizer means what? Fertilizer is nothing but chemical. All of you will agree with me? Fertilizer is nothing but chemical. That is, what we expect is the land should have certain nutrients. The land should have certain nutrients, right? If the land does not have sufficient nutrients or not the right nutrients, then artificially we will simply supply chemicals. And this artificial application, additional application of chemicals is called as fertilizers. Any difficulty in understanding the term fertilizer? Because many of the students, when I'm about to finish fertilizer, they will ask, what is fertilizer? Right? I'll give a very simple, similar example. Right? All of you, even me, we have experienced this. When we were kids, looking at our growth, either height, weight, etc., don't you think your parents, my parents, etc., would have given Complan? Let me know. Complan, Boost, etc. Why? To basically increase the height, right? Increase the weight, etc. Reason is simple. Whatever food we consume, that should be sufficient to, right? It should supply sufficient nutrients to our body, right? But what has happened is, right, maybe there is a shortage, etc. Artificially, in another source, we will supply it. That is basically fertilizer in context of plants. Okay, now don't worry, UPSC is not going to ask you about boost here. Focus on the fertilizer. So fertilizer is basically chemicals, application of chemicals. Now, whenever you talk about chemicals, right, simple, there are these kind of fertilizers which are available in the market. One is called as urea, and have a look at this. One is called as urea. Second one is called as a DAP. Third one is called as MOP. And before you start typing, right, right, before you start typing, what is this? What is that? DAP stands for diammonium phosphate, and MOP stands for muriate of potash. DAP stands for, right, diammonium phosphate, and MOP stands for muriate of potash. Now, before I go forward, there are two students who are saying, sir, what you are writing is not visible. Please refresh. Please refresh. Whenever the audio is not coming to you, or let's say what I'm writing is not coming to you, or screen gets stuck up, simple refresh. Simply refresh, automatically it will start. Okay, now let me go forward. So DAP stands for diammonium phosphate and MOP stands for muriate of potash. Apart from this, we also have a complex fertilizer. Apart from this, we also have one more combination called as complex fertilizer. What do you mean by complex fertilizer? Nitrogen is present, phosphorus is present, potassium is present, sulfur is present, etc., etc. So there are different combinations, different variations of this which are available in the market, which is referred to as a complex fertilizer. Now, in case of urea, please remember this. In case of urea, the dominant nutrient that is present in the fertilizer is nitrogen. Is it okay? I'll repeat it. In case of urea, the dominant, that is most of the urea, the fertilizer consists of majorly nitrogen. In case of diammonium phosphate, it is majorly phosphorus. And in case of MOP, it is majorly potassium. It is majorly potassium. For example, imagine you have purchased 100 kg of muriate of potash. Have a look at this. And again, I don't expect UPSC will ask you this. But anyways, if you purchase 100 kg of muriate of potash, 60% of it, 60% of it will be potassium. Sorry, K. Potassium, K. That is 60 kg out of this MOP will be, right, potassium. That is basically the meaning of the statement. Majority of the MOP, it is potassium. Majority of the DAP, it is phosphorus. In case of DAP, 46% will be phosphorus. In case of urea, again 46% will be nitrogen. Right? But these are the market names which are there, which are available in the market. Now, next important point, in case of all the three fertilizers, be it urea, be it DAP, be it MOP, in case of all the three fertilizers, Government of India provides huge amount of subsidies. Is it okay? In case of all the three fertilizers, Government of India provides huge amount of subsidies. How? Right? What is the method? I'll explain that. Have patience. But rather than saying Government of India, technically speaking, it is the Department of Fertilizers which will provide, that is under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, which will provide the subsidies for the farmers here. This can be a typical question, technical question. Please by heart it. Why? If I have not written this statement, imagine I have not written the statement, and in the UPSC, a very straightforward question is asked. Which of the following authorities will provide agriculture subsidies? And if the first option is Ministry of Agriculture, most of you will think that is correct. Round off Ministry of Agriculture. Most of you would do it. And if second option is a Ministry of Finance, many of you will simply say, hey, Finance Ministry is very, very important. So you would round off B. And very few people who have actually read, right, would round off, let's say C, which is Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Earlier, it is true that it was Ministry of Agriculture which used to administer. Administer means what? Provide the agriculture subsidies, or sorry, the fertilizer subsidies. Now it is not the Ministry of Agriculture. Rather, it is the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. And within that, Department of Fertilizers. Now, I'll come back to this, right? Don't worry. There is one more point. I'll come back to this. Have a look at certain numbers here. Please do not by heart anything. Please do not by heart. Make observations. And all this data that I've taken is from Economic Survey. Next year, when the new Economic Survey will be published, my recommendation, please look at the data all over again. Now, what is the observation that you can make? Look at the first graph. Please look at the first graph. Urea, DAP and complex fertilizers. Urea, DAP and complex fertilizers. Now, even if you have a doubt right now, please have a look at this. Every bar that you can see, it's a bar graph. Every bar that you can see, there are three components. Every bar that you can see, there are three components. Can you see those three color codings? Of course, I know the ash color that they've used are not clearly differentiating, but don't worry. Right? At least now, can you see? Right? Let me use a different color code so that you can understand. Is it visible now? Let me know. Is it visible now? These are the three components. And second bar graph, these are the three components. Now, do not by heart all the three components. No point. Don't by heart. Please make an observation and tell me which of the three fertilizer there is a highest production in India. Out of all the three which are provided here, which has the highest production in India? All of you will agree, urea? Anybody has a different take on it, different opinion about it? Please do let me know. Right? So it is urea. So highest produced fertilizer in India is urea. Point number two. Some of you will look at it and say, sir, wait a minute. One more type of fertilizer is missing. That is MOP. Please look at all the years. MOP is one component which is missing here. It means MOP is not produced in India. Is it okay? It means MOP is not produced. MOP, whatever is consumed in India, it is imported. Is it okay? Right? MOP, whatever is consumed in India, will be imported. Nothing is produced. And the reason is very simple. The raw materials that are required to produce MOP are not available in India. And that is the precise reason Government of India says we will import it. That's the second point. Third point. Look at the imports of fertilizers. Look at the imports of fertilizers. Now, based on the observation, can I also simply say, out of all the imports of fertilizers, urea is the highest imported fertilizer in India. Please make the observation and let me know. Urea is the highest imported fertilizer in India. Yes or no? Urea is the highest. So production, urea is the highest. Right? Consumption, urea is highest. Of course, now that should be very, very much clear to you. If production plus import is higher for urea, of course, it means consumption should also be highest. So production, consumption, imports. And the fourth one, if production is highest, import is highest, what about subsidy? Don't you think automatic inference will be subsidy provided by the government, right? The highest amount of subsidy will be provided for urea. Done? Right? Highest amount of subsidy will be provided for urea only. Now, please understand the next point carefully. Because the government incurs a huge amount of subsidy on urea, imports a huge amount of urea from rest of the world. If in the international market, fertilizer prices will start increasing, natural gas prices will start increasing, that will automatically put a huge burden on the subsidies incurred by the government of India. Right? I'm talking about current affairs. Please connect it to current affairs. If the market prices of these components in the international market will go up, that is, let's say nitrogenous based fertilizers, market price will go up, the natural gas prices will go up, etc., then automatically the subsidy burden on government of India will also go up. Now, next question is, sir, how subsidy is provided? How is the subsidy provided by the government? Now, follow this very carefully. Two methods are there. After this, we'll take the break. Follow the discussion. Two methods are there. First method, I will classify the fertilizers like this. Urea, I will keep it on one side. And right, the DAP and MOP, I'll keep it on the other side. Is it okay? Urea, I will classify it on the one side. And DAP and MOP, I'll classify it in the other group. Now have a look at this. For urea, the subsidy that is provided by the government will be based on production cost. The subsidy on urea that will be provided will be based on production cost. Whereas in case of a DAP and MOP, government from 2010 has introduced a new system, nutrient-based subsidy. Nutrient-based subsidy, NBS. Nutrient-based subsidy, NBS. Let me discuss how subsidies are provided in case of urea and how subsidies are provided under NBS, nutrient-based subsidy. Let's start. Imagine I'm a manufacturer of urea. Okay, imagine I'm manufacturing urea fertilizer. Now, in order to manufacture, let's say, 1 bag of urea, the actual cost of production, again, whatever numbers I'm going to give, these are only for simplification, only for the purpose of calculation. Numbers are very complicated, very, very high. Do not buy at the numbers. Now, let's start. I'm manufacturing urea. Actual cost per bag, when I want to sell it in the market, I want to sell it in the market at, let's say, 900 rupees. I want to sell it at 900 rupees. But Government of India says, please do not sell it at 900. Sell it at 300 rupees in the market. Which means, please tell me now, who is fixing the MRP for urea? At least based on this, tell me, who is fixing the MRP for urea? Can I say Government of India is fixing MRP? Can I go forward? Government of India is fixing MRP. But if you are the government, I will ask you, sir, I want to sell it at 900. You are telling me to sell it at 300 rupees. I will incur a loss of 600 rupees. Then you will tell me, don't worry, sell it at 300 rupees. I will give you the 600 rupee in the form of subsidy. Simple. Government will give that 600 rupee in the form of subsidy to the urea producer. This is how Government of India will provide subsidies for urea. Any difficulty here? Any difficulty? Now please tell me, natural gas, which is an input, very simple. Right? There was one student who was asking, what is the connection between natural gas and fertilizer? My dear, natural gas is one of the raw material to produce fertilizer. Very simple. Right? If you have made an observation, right? Again, I don't expect everybody to do that. If somebody is living nearby to a fertilizer plant, if somebody is living nearby to a fertilizer plant, just see the smell of the air surrounding the fertilizer plant. It will be very pungent smell, very, very gaseous, pungent smell. Again, don't do that, right? Don't go in search of fertilizer plants now, not required. Argument is simple. Natural gas is one of the raw materials, one of the inputs. So the natural gas prices have gone up. Raw material cost, right? It has increased. Automatically, the price for the cultivation price for production will also increase. But Government of India has not changed this MRP. Right now, the MRP is somewhere around 270 rupees. I repeat, right now, MRP for a bag of urea is somewhere around 270. So if the cost of producing one bag becomes 3,000 rupees, the government subsidy will be more than 2,700 rupees. Agreed? Right? The government subsidies will be more than 2,700 rupees. And because of, let's say, higher natural gas prices, and again raw material prices will increase, the actual cost becomes 3,500 rupees. Now, don't you think government subsidies will be more than 3,200 rupees? Has it happened in the recent current affairs? Yes, this has actually happened. The amount of subsidy that the government is providing in case of these kind of fertilizers is very, very huge, very, very huge. And that's a reason for the last financial year, I repeat, for the last financial year, Government of India in the budget had estimated that fertilizer subsidy will be somewhere around 1.05 lakh crore rupees. I repeat, for the last financial year, the Government of India had estimated that the fertilizer subsidy will be around 1.05 lakh crore rupees. You know how much they have revised it to now? More than 2 lakh crore rupees. More than 2 lakh crore rupees. From 1.05 to more than 2 lakh crore rupees. Don't you think Russia-Ukraine war has had an impact here? Think of it. Don't you think Russia and Ukraine war has had an impact, a direct impact on increasing subsidy burden on fertilizers by Government of India? Right? So that is one point here. Fertilizer subsidy. This is how urea is calculated. Next one, in case of a diammonium phosphate and a muriate of potash. In case of diammonium phosphate and a muriate of potash, how subsidies are provided? Please understand, it's a very simple concept. Nutrient based subsidy. Nutrient based subsidy. What do you mean by nutrient based subsidies? Imagine you want to manufacture a fertilizer. You want to produce a fertilizer. Now, simple question to you. Will you require nutrients here or not? Let me know. You want to manufacture this fertilizer. Will you require nutrients or not? Of course, yes. You will require nutrients. So, whatever nutrients you are consuming, for every 1 kg of the nutrient, government will fix subsidy. I repeat, whatever nutrients you are using, for every 1 kg of the nutrient, government will fix subsidy. Now look at the name. Is it easy or not? Let me know. Does it make sense to you why this is called as a nutrient based subsidy? Based on the consumption of nutrients, based on quantity of nutrients consumed, the government would decide what is the subsidy. Hence called as nutrient based subsidy. For example, again, hypothetical numbers. I have written this also. Please read it. Please read it. The subsidy provided by the government will keep on changing. So do not by heart it. Understand the concept. Now, let's say you're a manufacturer. You want to manufacture 100 kg of diammonium phosphate. Okay, I'll repeat it. Imagine you're a manufacturer and you want to manufacture 100 kg of diammonium phosphate. So in diammonium phosphate, 18% is nitrogen, 46% is basically the P, phosphorus, which means out of 100 kgs, 18 kgs will be nitrogen and 46 kgs will be phosphorus. And let's say hypothetically, for 1 kg of nitrogen, government will fix a subsidy of 18 rupees. I'm just rounding off. For 1 kg of fertilizer, that is 1 kg of nitrogen, the government has fixed a subsidy of 18 rupees. So how many kgs of nitrogen you have consumed? 18 kgs. So how much subsidy you should get? 18 square, that is 18 into 18. Now 46 kgs of phosphorus you have consumed. For every 1 kg of phosphorus, imagine government of India is providing 14 rupees as subsidies. So 46 kg into 14. So get the sum total, you will get it at around 958 rupees. Now, should you by heart this calculation? Absolutely no. I am rounding off the number, and moreover, government has already changed all these numbers. Please do not by heart the numbers. But please do let me know, can you now understand what is the meaning of nutrient-based subsidy regime? Let me know how government of India will decide that the subsidy, how much subsidy should we provide in case of a diammonium phosphate, in case of muriate of potash. Right? Is it easy? Anybody is finding it difficult? Let me know right now. In case of muriate of potash, 60% weightage is potassium. So if you manufacture 100 kg of muriate of potash, 60 kg will be potassium. So per kg, let's say government of India has decided 10 rupee. So 10 rupee into 60 rupee, 600 rupee worth of subsidy will be provided for every 100 kg of MOP being produced. Right? This is how the concept of subsidies on MOP, DAP will be decided by the government. Whereas in case of urea, that is a different process. These are the two different methodologies used by the government to calculate subsidies on fertilizers. Can we go forward now? Any difficulty? Can we go forward? On what basis subsidies decide? My dear, did we not discuss two methods just now? Did we not discuss two methods? If it is a DAP, MOP, whatever nutrients you are consuming, on that government will decide a subsidy. In case of, right, let's say urea, it is basically based on production cost. Okay. Sir, we don't get urea at 300. My dear, please check. As far as I'm concerned, right now, a bag of 45 kgs of urea in the market should cost you somewhere around 272 rupees. If my number is correct, in the market right now, the urea for a bag of 45 kgs should be available at around 272 rupees. Again, it might vary. It could be 275, it could be this, but I'm pretty sure it will be in the range, a ballpark of 270 rupees. I'm pretty sure about it. Please check. Okay, done. Now, before I go forward, that is, take a break. Let me take up the previous year questions. Let's solve these previous year questions. And before we end today's class, we'll take up financial market previous year questions. Let's start. Okay. At 55% I've answered correctly. It should be higher, my dear. It should be higher. Price of any currency in the international market is decided by whom? World Bank. How many of you believe World Bank will decide the price of the exchange rate? No. Right? What is the exchange rate? Does World Bank decide? No. Demand for goods and services provided by the country concerned. Yes, of course, yes. Imports, exports, etc. Stability of the government of the country concerned. We have discussed all of this, by the way. Those are asking, sir, where? There are two slides having a heading, factors influencing exchange rate. Please look at the slides. Economic potential of the country in the question? No. Potential does not determine. What is the performance will determine. Right? So 2 and 3 are correct. Right option for the question will be option B. Right? That is 3. I'm saying 2 and 3. Okay, 53%. Should be more. Which of the following constitutes capital account? Let me know. Did we discuss capital account? First and foremost, did we discuss capital account or not? Yes, by the way. Loans, foreign loans. Is it part of capital account? If you remember, I gave you a very simple definition of capital account transactions. I said, try to remember the fact that it will consist of assets and liabilities. It will basically consist of assets and liabilities. So loans, right? Don't you think it is either an asset or liability? Yes. Direct investment in assets, of course, yes. Remittances, remittances, is it part of the capital account? Is it part of the capital account? No. Portfolio investment. What's the meaning of portfolio investment? Please remember this. We'll come across the term portfolio. Portfolio refers to a group consisting of different assets. Simple. Group consisting of, right, different assets. For example, I'll give a very simple example. Imagine you have a lot of money to invest in the market. You'll purchase, let's say, 10 shares of company A. You'll purchase 20 shares of company B. You'll purchase 10 government bonds. You'll purchase 10 government bonds. Now, can I simply call this as your portfolio of investment? Let me know. Can I call this as your portfolio of investment? That is, within your investment, what kind of assets you're actually having. That's called as portfolio. Right, done. Arey Baba, portfolio is a very common term. Have you heard of portfolio photos? Right? If any of you are pursuing modeling, they will ask you to go and have a portfolio. Marriage, they will ask you to have a portfolio. Yes or no? Again, don't use all of that in the UPSC. But the term portfolio is a very, very common term. Portfolio refers to group of certain assets like this. Okay, so 3 is wrong, 4th one is correct. Right, so 1, 2, and 4 are correct. The right option will be option B here. Okay, next one. Okay, 68% have answered correctly. But why? Why? It should be more, right? Okay, next one. The balance of payments of a country is a systematic record of all import and export transactions of a country during a given period, normally a year. This is a definition of balance of payments. Any difficulty in point A? Point A is basically the definition of balance of payments. All the transactions that will lead to inflow of currencies, outflow of currencies. Now, some of you are saying, sir, it is talking only about trade. My dear, please look at point A and tell me, are they specifically talking about the trade or all the transaction that will lead to import of currencies, export of currencies? Please do let me know. Point number A, are they talking only about the trade? Some of you are saying yes. Without reading the statement, some of you are saying yes. The statement says all import and export transactions. I hope you understand. All import and export transactions means what? Any transaction that will lead to inflow of currency, outflow of currency, importing transaction, exporting transaction. And that is basically what they're talking about here. Anyways, point B, goods exported from a country to another country during a year. Of course, no. Does this give you a balance of payment? It is part of the balance of payment. Let me know. Does it give you a balance of payment? No, there are so many other transactions. Third one, economic transactions between the government of one country to another. My dear, what about private sector transactions? Let me know. Many of you are asking, sir, why C is not correct? You tell me. After looking at all the transaction, I'm telling you, you are a software engineer. You have gone outside. You will send money to your parents. You will send your money to your sibling, your relatives, etc. You're part of the government. Think of it. I spoke about imports and exports. I spoke about toys coming into India, toys going out of India, tourists coming into India, tourists going out of India, investments coming into India, investments going out of India, ECB, private sector companies borrowing. After all of this, you are saying why C is wrong? Does C basically say, right? Does C basically say, right, it will cover all the transactions within the balance of payments? No, it basically says only government. Is it okay? Right, basically the government. So C is wrong. Capital movements from one country to another country. Again, capital movements, foreign investments coming in, going out. What about remittances? What about remittances? What about goods and services? That is also wrong. Option A. Option A is the correct one. Again, many of you are asking, sir, new pattern. My dear, these are previous year questions. How can I change the pattern of previous year questions? Think of it, no? Whatever has been asked in this year, I've been showing you wherever it is applicable. Solve it. And sir, what if it is asked in the same pattern? They can ask you, can I change the pattern here? Of course, yes. Only one is correct. Only two are correct. Three are correct. All four are correct. If you are able to solve the question, will it make any difference when the pattern changes? Think of it. Simply don't waste your time running behind a pattern, etc. That's the reason. Generally, I'm concerned about the students because rather than understanding the concept, you are running behind patterns. Don't worry about patterns. If you know how to solve, your concepts are clear, doesn't matter. Whatever could be the pattern, you'll be able to solve it. Let's start. Okay. See, here also 43% have answered correctly. So let me ask you a very simple question. When 43% of you are answering correctly, don't you think your concepts, right, there is something, right, lagging behind in terms of understanding the concepts? Whether the pattern changes, pattern remains the same, don't you think? Yeah, you're basically falling behind in terms of understanding concepts. Some of you would have missed the meaning of the term decline of current account deficit. Some of you would have missed the term decline of current account deficit. What is basically decline of current account deficit? CAD should come down. Which of the following will lead to reduction in the CAD? Let's start. Restriction on non-essential imports. Please tell me, if government will impose restriction on non-essential imports, will the CAD come down? Of course, yes. Of course, yes, the CAD will come down. Second, export demand slowdown. The exports from India, right? The amount of exports, the value of exports will start going down. In that case, don't you think the inflow of dollars will also start going down? And when inflow of dollars will go down, CAD will widen. CAD will not come down. CAD will widen. Okay. So second one is wrong. Third one, increase in the exports. When the exports will increase, exactly opposite to the second one. When the exports will increase, the CAD will come down. So which of the following are the contributors? Contributors means which of the following will reduce the current account deficit. 1 will reduce CAD, 3 will reduce CAD. Right option will be option A, 1 and 3. Any difficulty here? This is a straightforward question. So I've reduced the timing. It's a straightforward question. Okay. Convertibility of the rupee implies what? Being able to convert rupee notes into gold. Did we discuss convertibility in the context of gold and rupee notes? No. Allowing the value of the rupee to be fixed by the market forces. Right? That is basically floating exchange rate. No. Freely permitting the conversion of rupee to other major currencies and vice versa. Option C is the correct one. Developing an international market for currencies in India. No way. Right? That is not convertibility. Convertibility means how easily, without any restriction, without any condition, you are allowing conversion of domestic currency into foreign currency and vice versa. That's convertibility. Right? So right option is option C. Read the question very carefully. Slightly tricky question. Read the statements carefully. Okay. 41% have answered correctly. Let's start. Consider the following statements. The effect of devaluation of a currency is that it necessarily, underline the term necessarily. Please underline the term necessarily. Why? Necessarily means if the government will go for a devaluation of rupee, what is the guaranteed outcome? Which of the following outcomes will happen? Point number one, improves competitiveness of domestic exports in the foreign market. Any difficulty with point number one? You should not have any difficulty here, but do let me know if anybody has a difficulty in the point number one. Automatically, yes. If there is a devaluation of rupee, automatically the Indian goods will become more competitive in the international market. Increase the foreign value of the domestic currency. Foreign value of the domestic currency simply means for a foreign market or in the international market, value of rupee increases. Is it correct? If government of India will devalue its currency, the value of rupee in the international market against, let's say, a dollar, it increases. No, it doesn't increase. It will actually decrease. Second one is wrong. Improves the trade balance. How many of you are sure that with the devaluation of the currency, trade balance will improve for India? Is it necessary? Will it happen always? Let me know. With rupee devaluation, how many of you are sure that right the trade balance of India will necessarily improve? Is there any guarantee? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. Can I prove it? Right, forget about devaluation term here. Devaluation and depreciation. Outcome is same? Impact is same or no? Right, devaluation and depreciation. Outcome is same. Now please tell me in the last 1 year, Indian currency, has it depreciated or not? Let me know. The Indian rupee, has it depreciated? Yes, Indian rupee has depreciated. In the last 10 years, has on an average Indian rupee depreciated? Again, answer is yes. But is there anyone in the classroom who says, sir, the trade balance of India also has improved? in all these years? Let me know, because the answer is wrong. Trade balance has not improved, right? The reason is very simple. If rupee depreciates, we have discussed this. If rupee depreciates, what will happen to imports? What will happen to imports? Imports will become costlier. And India being a net importer, I repeat, India being a net importer, if there is a depreciation or devaluation of the currency, do you think imports value will go down and exports value will increase, thereby improving the trade balance? No. The trade balance on the other side can actually, the trade deficit can actually widen because of rupee depreciation or rupee devaluation. So there is not a guaranteed outcome here. There is no necessarily, this is not a necessary outcome. So first one is correct, second is wrong, third is wrong. Right option for the question will be option A, one only. First point explain, my dear. Right? If rupee depreciates, if rupee devalues, the products can be exported to the international market at lower prices. If you do not revise, trust me, everything is new for you. We have discussed this. What is the impact of rupee depreciation, rupee devaluation on the imports and exports? We have discussed this. Right? If you do not revise it, everything will be new for you. My recommendation is simply revise it. Have a look at this. If rupee depreciates or devalues, what will happen to the exports? Right? What will happen to the exports? Export competitiveness automatically will go up. Okay. Now, next, this one we have solved yesterday. Do you remember this? Near and rear. We have solved this yesterday. So that's the reason I'm going to skip this. Next is a descriptive question, which will take it up after the break. Don't worry. Okay. Next is right, a descriptive question. We'll take it up after the break. Let me address your questions. Only farmer include in input subsidy? No, my dear. I gave you an example. I gave you an example. Different types of input subsidies are provided. Exemption to two-wheelers at tolls. Is it implicit subsidy? No. Right? Two-wheelers generally they do not charge because the amount of services that they use will be very, very negligible. Providing a particular amount to each and every family by the government during a pandemic, that cash can be considered as a subsidy. During pandemic, in fact, Government of India provided subsidies for certain people. If you have read the newspapers, you will know there is one component where Government of India started providing cash subsidies to certain people, right? Members in the family or a household. That is basically an assistance, subsidy only. Is income the only factor for providing targeted subsidy? My dear, I gave you an example. Can you understand my point here? I gave you an example. Under PLI, that is the condition from targeted subsidy. Different types of subsidies can be utilized to target different aspects. In LPG subsidy, again, that was an example. Income is the criteria. Again, please understand the point. I've been telling you this at least 5 times now. There are more than 300 schemes in India. More than 300 schemes. Do not waste your time in understanding all the schemes. Don't waste your time. Unnecessarily, you're making it more complicated. Understand the concept to go forward. Sir, how much per capita subsidy is given by government for one LPG cylinder? It will vary from one state to another state. If interest is low, would someone invest in that country? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Investments can happen there also. Because let's say interest is low. For example, USA, government is much more stable. Growth potential is very good. GDP is very, very high. Of course, yes. They will attract, right? USA will also attract a lot of investors. India's biggest virtual exporter of water despite water crisis. What do you have to say on it? I don't have any say on it. It's a fact. There is a very interesting quote. Very, very interesting quote. You are entitled to your own opinion, not facts. I repeat the statement. You are entitled to your own opinion, but not the facts. India is an exporter, virtual water exporter. That's a fact. But government provides extra cost that incurred by the exporter. So how higher logistic cost? My dear, right? Imagine you're moving a product on a road. Please tell me, will the cost of transportation be higher or not? Right? So, how cost of transportation is higher? In another country, they will move the product through water. Through water means waterways are there, right? Rivers are connected. They will use a vessel, move the good. In India, most of the goods are moved on road. Now, please tell me, don't you think when you move the goods on the road, cost of transportation would be higher? Automatically, yes. Okay. What is a foreign value? Foreign value simply means the rupee value against a foreign currency. Simple. Foreign value means what is the rupee value for a foreign currency? That is in the international market. Has the value of rupee increased or decreased? Why trade not balance with devaluation? My dear, you tell me why it should balance. Do you think value of exports is equal to value of imports? You tell me, does it make sense? No, it should not balance. We are net importers. Imports will become very costly. Trade deficit will increase. Okay, done. Let me take a break now. Let me take a break. I'll restart at 7:45. I'll restart at 7:45. Take a break now. Am I audible? Am I audible? Can we start? Okay, let's start. A descriptive question is given here. Please have a look at it. How would the recent phenomena of protectionism and currency manipulation in the world trade affect the macroeconomic stability of India? Simple, straightforward question. But again, don't search for the answers in the newspapers. I'm sorry, in the books you will not get it. Basically, it is related to current affairs. How would the recent phenomena of protectionism and currency manipulation? Protectionism is basically imposing tariff as well as non-tariff barriers. I'll repeat the statement. Protectionism simply means imposing tariff as well as non-tariff barriers. What's the reason? In order to protect the domestic market. That's it. Why do you think governments will impose these kind of barriers? In order to protect domestic market. So currency manipulations as well as imposition of such policies, how it will have an impact on the macroeconomic stability in India. Start with an introduction. What could be an introduction? Again, don't have a very lengthy introduction here. You can simply say like this. During the last couple of years, that is during the period of pandemic, it has been seen that various governments around the world have been implementing tariff, non-tariff barriers and also involved in the currency manipulations. That's it. That is the introduction. Don't waste your time. Come to the main body. What should be the focus area for you? First one, whenever there is a protectionist policy, it will have an impact on trade, competition, as well as stability in India. Let me prove it. If government of USA will impose a certain, let's say, tariff barrier as well as non-tariff barriers, and there have been examples, many examples, right? If I want to give you one example, government of USA in the last couple of years has imposed a lot of taxes on steel imports which are coming from many other countries. They've imposed higher tariffs on aluminum imports which are coming from many other countries, including India. So whenever governments across the world will impose a tariff as well as non-tariff barriers in order to have a domestic protection, it will automatically affect exports from India. Yes or no? It will automatically affect, it will reduce the exports. That's a basic point. It will reduce the exports from India. And when exports from India will go down, what will happen to the overall trade? Overall trade will go down. And right, imagine lot of companies which are manufacturing and exporting. If they are unable to export, don't you think production in India will be lower? Unemployment will start increasing. Competition in the market will start going down because they are not able to produce and export. That is basically the first point. Okay, right? Impact of currency manipulations. For example, I told you China is accused of currency manipulation. And even Federal Reserve, what Federal Reserve does, let's say federal tapering, right? Don't you think federal tapering will also have an impact on currency in India? Think of it and let me know. Federal tapering, will it have an impact on currency in India? That is basically manipulation done in USA having an impact on the exchange rate in India. So currency manipulations will also have a huge impact in other countries as well, right? They might do in order to protect their domestic market, but it will affect currency stability in India, right? Market will become unstable, volatile. Investments will start flowing out of India. Rupee will depreciate. And when rupee depreciates, tell me what will happen to imports. India is a net importer of the goods. Automatically, all of this will lead to huge instability, volatility in India. And whenever there is a competitive manipulation, right? What is the meaning of competitive manipulation? Fed tapering, that is reduction in the money supply, is done by USA. Is it the only country which has reduced money supply in the recent times? Let me know. We have discussed all of this. Is USA the only country that has reduced money supply in the recent times? What about Europe? What about Europe? What about India? Right? Don't you think there are many other countries, just like USA is trying to control inflation, many other countries also have reduced money supply, right? That is basically competitive, right, manipulation, right? Competitive manipulation will have an impact on currencies across the world. And if China goes for devaluation of their domestic currency, if China goes for devaluation of their currency, will it affect Indian economy? Will it affect trade with India? Will it have an impact on more imports into India and less exports from India? Answer for all of them is yes. And if China will do it, why not USA? Don't you think USA will also do that same thing? They will also say China is doing it, we will do it. What about Europe? They will also say if China is doing, we will do it. So overall, in many other economies, this devaluation, that is a competitive devaluation, might snowball, and that will lead to destruction of the international trade. And that will definitely have an impact on the Indian market. Okay, Indian economy. Okay. Now, what are the other points? Recent trends in the global market, such as USA imposing tariffs, China is retaliating against it. India is also imposing tariffs on the imports. These are from the current affairs itself, right? Quantitative easing and federal tapering, right? And the impact of that on a country such as India. Basically, a simplified version of what I've told. Then basically, you'll have to conclude. What should be a conclusion? You'll have to conclude on a positive note. With these kind of protectionist policies across the world, devaluation policies followed by many countries across the world, role of WTO becomes very important. WTO as well as let's say even IMF takes care of devaluation or depreciation, and on the other hand, WTO takes care of international trade. So international agencies such as IMF as well as WTO will have to become a very important agencies in terms of stabilizing these kind of actions by various other countries. Right? That is how you'll have to conclude. And this is the important point. Please remember, never conclude with a negative conclusion. Do not write a negative conclusion in your answers. Right? UPSC, if you write a negative conclusion, automatically it means rather than giving a solution, you are creating more problems. I hope you understand. Give always a positive conclusion. What should be the way forward, etc., etc. Give that as a conclusion. Okay. Right, sir? What is the meaning of negative conclusion? Many of you will basically say, right, if that is a problem, if this is the problem, why not? Why not simply not trade with China? Why not simply not trade with USA? Why not simply not allow USA investors to invest in India so that they will not invest in India? They will not take out their investment. So, no volatility in India. So, do not have negative conclusions. Give solutions to the problem. Don't create a bigger problem. Done? Right? So, again, this is a question which we have already solved. This question we have already solved. That's the reason it is there in the PPT. Done? So these are the questions which have appeared from international trade, financial market. Couple of more questions are there. We'll discuss that before the wind up. Before we wind up today's session. Don't worry. We'll go back, have a discussion regarding those questions as well. Now this is where we stopped before the break. The subsidies given by the government for fertilizer, right? In case of MOP, DAP, the methodology is different. In case of urea, it is different. Now, how much subsidy is provided? Please have a look at it. Do not by heart, just make an observation. Just make an observation. Now, can I simply say the amount of fertilizer subsidy that is provided by the government, it is highest for urea fertilizer. Please have a look at the PPT. Please look at the graph and tell me, out of the total fertilizer subsidy provided by the government, the highest amount of subsidy is provided for urea. That's a fact. Please have a look at it. Please have a look at it. You will realize it. And already I've told you. And do not by heart this table. UPSC doesn't ask the table. What they might ask you is, has the subsidy kept on increasing? Yes. Has the subsidy been highest in the last 1 year? Yes. Right? Is the subsidy highest for urea? Yes. Is the subsidy given for urea, has it increased in the last 5 years? Again, the answer is yes. Done? Right? That's a basic idea. Now, some of you are asking why? What is the reason why in 21-22 subsidy has come down? My dear, please read what is given in the slide. Please read what is given in the slide. Without reading, don't ask questions. Is it for complete 21 and 22? Is it for complete 21 and 22? No, it is not. Right? So don't simply look at the graph and say, sir, it has reduced. No, my dear, it is higher, but it is not for a complete financial year. It is only for 3 quarters. Okay. Sir, where will I get the complete data for 21-22? Next year's economic survey. That's it. Okay. Now, certain points here. Again, nothing new. Whatever I've discussed, it is given in the point form. Agriculture urea is most subsidized, most produced, most consumed, most imported, most physically controlled. Now, last point I have not discussed, understand this. What do you mean by most physically controlled? Whenever fertilizer is produced, Government of India will decide where these fertilizers will be sold. Any difficulty? I'll repeat it again. Whenever fertilizer is produced, Government of India will decide in which state how much fertilizer will be moved, how much will be sold. That is called as physical control. Movement of the fertilizer is controlled by the government. Right? So that is basically the point here. In case of diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash, government pays a subsidy based on the quantity of nutrients used, whereas in case of urea, it is the government which fixes MRP. Did we discuss this? Government of India fixes MRP for urea. Statement is correct, by the way. I've already told you. Sir, what about MAP and MOP and DAP? Does Government of India decide the MRP? Absolutely no. Right? Government of India does not decide the MRP. Only for urea it decides. In case of a DAP and MOP, government will simply provide subsidies. The prices are decided by the companies. It will provide subsidy for domestic producers, again for urea, and even those who are importing, government will provide subsidies for them as well. And in the context of importing, generally who are allowed? And please understand, next year, one of this company can be removed, another company can be added. 2 companies can be removed, only 2 companies can be allowed to import. So the list will keep on changing, but generally these are the companies which are allowed. India Potash Limited, Rashtriya Chemicals and Fertilizers, National Fertilizers Limited, etc. These are the companies again owned by Government of India which are allowed to import fertilizers. Okay. The movement of the fertilizer is controlled or directed by the government. Same as the first point here. That the movement of the fertilizer, that is how much is produced, how much of it will be sold, in which state, in which region it will be sold, that will be controlled by the government. That is the last point here. Done? Right? So these are certain important points regarding fertilizer, right, as a component within the subsidy. Please remember this. Now, what are the issues? Government is giving subsidies for fertilizers. What are the issues? Point number 1, huge amount of black marketing of fertilizers takes place. What do you mean by black marketing here? Black marketing refers to economic activity beyond permitted methods by the government. Government has told you how you are supposed to sell it in the market, but you will not use that method. You will use a different method to sell it in the market. That is called as black marketing. Right? Selling beyond permitted channels is called as black marketing. For example, I'll give a very simple example here. Imagine I'm a supplier of fertilizer in the market. Government will give me the fertilizers. I've been given the license. Government will give the fertilizer to me. I am supposed to sell the fertilizer to the farmers. Now follow the next point very carefully. Why do they black market it? Fertilizer is nothing but chemicals. All of you will agree? Fertilizer is nothing but a chemical. Now, chemicals such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, these are used in the agriculture sector, but these are also used in other industries. These are also used in other industries as well. For example, making chemicals, that is hazardous chemicals, making explosives, etc. So argument is simple here. The fertilizer, which is nothing but a chemical, nitrogen is there, phosphorus is there, potassium is there, etc. I can use that for agriculture sector. I can use it for other commercial purposes as well. Now, if I am the distributor of this fertilizer, can I sell the same fertilizer, that is a chemical, for other industries also? Let me know. Can I divert this? I'm supposed to sell it to farmer, but a company will give money to me. They will pay higher amount of money. I will simply divert it to a company. This is nothing but black marketing. This is nothing but black marketing. And what will happen as a result of black marketing? The fertilizer which was supposed to go to the farmers will not reach the farmers now. Will not go to the farmers. Availability of fertilizer in the market will go down. Now, don't you think farmers will become desperate? Farmers will become very much desperate. Why? There is a particular season time period only when you should apply fertilizer. If that time, that is window, that number of days, that window is over, no point. The plant will not grow at a very fast pace. So what will happen here? Black marketing will reduce the availability of fertilizers in the market. Farmers will suffer because of it. Next one, subsidy given to the domestic manufacturers, especially for urea, it is not sufficient. It is not the right method to provide urea subsidies. For example, you tell me, if you are the government, what makes more sense to you? Providing subsidies based on the production cost or nutrient based subsidies? Think of it and let me know. Providing subsidies based on cost of production or basically nutrient based subsidies. For you as the government, what makes better sense? My dear, two of you are saying production cost. Wrong. You should not provide subsidies based on production cost. You should provide it based on nutrients. Based on what raw material they are using, you should provide subsidy based on that. Because, let's say I'm a manufacturer, I'm using very old technology, outdated technology. What will happen as a result of that to the production cost? Does it make sense to you? I'm using a very, very old technology, outdated technology. What will happen to the production cost? Or you, my dear, some of you are saying production cost will come down. Is it? Is it? Does that make sense to you? If you're using very, very old technology, production cost will go down. How? How? Please tell me. It's like saying you have a mobile. In one mobile, you will have a 2G connection. In another mobile, you will have a 5G connection. I'm asking you, if you use both of them to download, let's say, a song, 2G connection will take lesser amount of time. How, my dear? How? Right? So I hope you understand. Production cost would be higher. Inefficient. That methodology is inefficient. Now, in that case, many of you will simply say, in that case, sir, why don't we shift to NBS? Like we are doing for others, why are we not shifting to NBS? This is the reason. Please understand this. Many of you will realize that when you talk about gold, right, the GST on the gold is 3%, 5%. I understand GST on jewelry, gold, etc. It is 5%. But let's say other commodities, the tax rate is 12%, 18%, 28%. Now, don't you think, right, there is one idea here, one question here, sir, why is that gold is taxed at a very low rate? Don't you think that that's a valid question? In the same way, here is a fertilizer, urea. Urea consumption is very high. Why is the government of India, right, giving a subsidy based on cost of production? Why not? Why are we not shifting to NBS? This is basically the answer to all these questions. Please understand. Consumption of commodities which have very high consumption. I understand. any commodity which has a very, very high demand in the market, if government will try to change the pricing of the product, suddenly the black marketing will increase. I'll repeat it again. Whenever government will try to change the price of the commodity whose demand is very, very high in the market, suddenly black marketing will take place for that. Can I give you a prime example of this? How many of you have read in the newspaper, whenever gold prices are very high, people will try to smuggle gold into India? Yes or no? Let me know whether you are reading this or not. Whenever gold prices are very high, people will try to smuggle more and more gold into India. Why? Because there is a huge potential for them to earn money. Black marketing. What about alcohol? Have you not seen people going to one state, bringing alcohol, smuggling alcohol into another state because the taxes are very high in the second state? I hope you understand that. Profit margins, black marketing. And that's a reason whenever you're crossing a state border, right, the police will ask you to stop, check your vehicle, whether you're smuggling or not, etc., etc. Again, don't write alcohol as an example in UPSC. This is the reason. You cannot simply change the pricing, then it will lead to smuggling, it will lead to black marketing. Okay, third one, disparity in the usage. What is this idea of a disparity in the usage? I said I'll go back to the first slide. Please have a look at it. Right, please have a look at it. Traditionally, on an average, we are supposed to use NPK. Please don't ask me after all of this what is NPK. It is there right in front of your eyes. NPK should be used in the ratio of 4:2:1. I'll repeat. NPK should be used in the ratio of 4:2:1. 4:2:1. But if I tell you that urea is available in the market at, let's say, 270 rupees, other fertilizers are available at least at 1200 rupees, you tell me the farmers will use more of urea or other fertilizers? Let me know. If I am saying that urea is available at 270 rupees, others are available at least 1200, farmers, don't you think they will consume more and more of urea? That is exactly what is happening in India today. Right? Rather than having a ratio of 4:2:1, right, the ratio right now is of 6.1:2.5:1. And again, this will keep on changing from 1 year to next year. This will keep on changing. It is never constant. It will keep on changing. And what is the problem? If I use more of urea, what is the problem? You tell me, have you heard of the nitrogen pollution? Have you read about this or not? High school, forget about ecology and environment. Class is not over, may not be over, don't worry. But in the high school, do you remember nitrogen pollution? If nitrogen is too much available in the soil, it will flow when the rain will fall. It will go to the pond. It will settle in the pond. Nitrogen availability will increase. Biodiversity in the pond will die. Eutrophication. Do you remember that? Right? So I hope now you can understand. If there is too much of nitrogen available in the soil, what is going to happen? Okay, right? So this is some of the these are some of the points regarding the concerns of the fertilizer subsidy in case of India. Okay, now what reforms have been implemented? We know there is a problem now. What is the reform? What reforms have been implemented? First one, DBT system, direct benefit transfer system, has been introduced by the government. DBT. What is this idea for DBT? Let's start. Direct benefit transfer basically is this process. Follow this carefully. Earlier, what used to happen is, here is the producer. Let's say they will produce a fertilizer, sell it to a shop, that is, give it to a shop. Shop will sell it to a farmer. The government would simply transfer the subsidy to the producer. Right? Basically, a non-DBT. Right? Now, please tell me, look at the example one, non-DBT. Look at the example one. Can the government come to know who are the farmers who are purchasing fertilizer? Let me know. In the example one, please look at the example one and tell me, can you find out, if you are the government, can you find out who are the farmers who are purchasing fertilizers? Absolutely no. Now, what is the guarantee that the shopkeeper will sell it to farmer only? Right? Some of you are saying yes. How can you say yes, my dear? You are the government here. Do you have a record of who is purchasing fertilizers? Absolutely no. So if there's a diversion, if there's a black marketing, don't you think this system is inefficient? Now, come to the second example. Come to the second example, direct benefit transfer. Under the new system, what will happen is, imagine, right? Imagine you are the shopkeeper here. You are the distributor of the fertilizer. Producer will give the fertilizer to you. Now, I will come to the shop. I'm the farmer. I'll come to the shop. I will purchase the fertilizer, but with one change now. I will have to provide my Aadhaar credential. I will have to provide my Aadhaar credential, or else I'll have to provide soil health card, Kisan credit card. In simple terms, I will have to prove I'm a farmer. Simple idea. I'll have to prove that I'm a farmer. You, who is the seller of fertilizer, you will enter the data, generate a receipt, basically print a receipt. Now, this data will be stored. Is it okay? This data will be stored in a server. Government can easily find out how many farmers have purchased how much fertilizer. And now government will provide subsidy to the producer. Right? Don't you think there is a difference between example 1 and example 2? In example 2, government is trying to ensure that farmers are purchasing fertilizers. How many farmers are purchasing how much fertilizer? Government can easily get the information regarding that. Right? This system has been introduced now. This is a new system that has been introduced by the government. This will try to ensure that only the farmers will get the subsidy, not others, not companies, not for commercial purposes. This is one reform. Have a look at this. The farmers should identify themselves using Aadhaar card, Kisan credit card. Subsidy will be credited to the manufacturer after the sales is done, after the data is available. It is estimated that with this, government will be able to save around 20% of the subsidy expenditure. Okay, so this is a direct benefit transfer in the fertilizers. Any difficulty? Can I go forward? Is this the only reform in the fertilizer sector? Absolutely no. There is one more very important current affairs reform. How many of you have read about this? Nano fertilizers. Let me know. How many of you have read regarding nano fertilizers, nano DBT, nano urea, nano DAP, etc., etc. We'll discuss this also when I take up agriculture sector. Can I go forward? Any difficulty? Can I go forward? There is no answer. Okay. Done. Right. So there is a nano fertilizer. There is basically neem fertilizer, right? Neem coated fertilizer, etc. We'll discuss that later. Don't worry. Okay. So next concept I want to discuss is direct benefit transfer, DBT. Direct benefit transfer, DBT. Now please understand this. Direct benefit transfer is a scheme or a program of Government of India. Scheme or program of Government of India. Any difficulty here? Direct benefit transfer is not direct subsidy. Please do not be confused. Let me know right now if there is any confusion. Direct benefit transfer, it is a name of a program or name of a scheme of Government of India. Under direct benefit transfer, more than 300 schemes. Let me show the picture to you. More than 300 schemes are covered, and these schemes are either having direct subsidy, right, or indirect subsidies. You can have schemes which are having direct subsidies or indirect subsidies. That is, the schemes where cash is provided by the government or kind assistance is provided by the government. For example, PM Kisan is covered under this. PM Kisan is covered under this. Can I say PM Kisan, right, is basically an example of direct subsidy or a cash subsidy? Let me know. PM Kisan is a direct subsidy or a cash subsidy, or else direct benefit transfer in LPG is covered under this. Direct subsidy or a cash subsidy? Of course, yes. Let me give you another example. Right, public distribution system. NFSA, National Food Security Act, public distribution system, which is a component out of it, or midday meals. Midday meals. That is also scheme covered under the direct benefit transfer. Can I say either the PDS or the midday meals, it is a kind subsidy? It is a kind subsidy, right? It is not giving cash. It is a kind subsidy. So again, remember this. Under the direct benefit transfer, it is a program. It is a scheme of the government of India. Under this, more than 300 schemes have been covered, and these schemes can be divided into those schemes which will provide cash subsidy or which will provide kind subsidy. And have a look at the data here. Please do not by heart the data. UPSC is not going to ask you this table. Cash schemes, right? So far, more than 1.7 lakh crore rupee has been spent, and kind schemes so far 2.08 lakh crore rupee has been spent under this. Is it okay? Right. So basically, idea of a DBT, direct benefit transfer, it is an initiative. It is a scheme of government of India which was introduced starting 2013. Which was introduced starting 2013, and over a period of time, more and more schemes have been brought under this. And as per the latest economic survey, more than 300 schemes are covered under this. Now, what is the objective of direct benefit transfer? We want to identify the right beneficiary and we want to target these beneficiaries. Simple idea, right? What is the objective of DBT? We want to find out who is the right beneficiary and we want to target the subsidies to these beneficiaries. And please let me know if you can identify and target the right beneficiaries. Don't you think diversion of subsidies will go down? Let me know. Diversion of subsidies will go down. What about leakages in the subsidies? Diversion or leakages, it will also go down. What about transparency in the system? Transparency in the system will improve. What about a financial burden on the government? Financial burden is expected to come down. Again, when I say financial burden, earlier, if there was no targeting, expenditure would have been much higher. Now, because we are using targeting, expenditure would be lower. Right? So these are some of the objectives with which direct benefit transfer initiative has been implemented by the government of India. Right? Same thing I've written here. Same thing. Accurate identification and targeting of beneficiaries. Transparency. Leakages will go down. Creation of accountability. Right? Government officials' accountability will increase. Efficiency of the schemes will increase. Effectiveness will also increase. These are certain objectives, and again, all this data I've taken directly from economic survey. Even this table was published in this year's economic survey. Again, next year also, I'm pretty sure certain more information will be provided. But how do we implement this DBT? On paper, it looks very simple. We'll identify, we'll transfer the benefits to them, etc., etc. How do we implement it? This is the model that we are using. JAM Trinity. Very famous now. Please have a look at this. JAM Trinity. Right? What is JAM Trinity? J stands for Janadhan, A stands for Aadhaar, M stands for mobile connectivity. Janadhan, Aadhaar, and mobile connectivity. And how are we going to use this Janadhan, Aadhaar, and mobile connectivity? Simple. Please have a look at the data or the flow chart here. Step 1 will be government will identify the beneficiaries. Right? Government will identify the beneficiaries. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, how? How government will identify the beneficiaries? Using your Aadhaar. Possible or not? Let me know. Using your Aadhaar, government will be able to identify who is the beneficiary. Who is the person X? Is the person farmer or not? Etc. etc. Some of you are saying no. My dear, Aadhaar is so much relevant today. Right? Tell me, Have you not used Aadhaar in any of the initiatives of Government of India so far? To identify yourself, have you not used Aadhaar? Please think of it. If you say no, sir, ask your parents at least. Ask your parents, they will tell you. And meanwhile, I'm asking you to ask your parents, ask one more thing. Ask one more thing to your parents. Has the rate of interest on their housing loan been updated yesterday or day for yesterday? Ask about this also. If anybody in your vicinity or you have taken the loan, please check. Has the rate of interest changed very, very recently by your lender, by your bank? Please have a look at it. Now, government will identify the beneficiaries using Aadhaar. That's the first step. Second is government will ask the beneficiaries to open the bank accounts. Simple. Government will ask the beneficiaries, right, to open the bank accounts. Now, what is the importance of the bank accounts? Do you remember Janadhan Yojana? Janadhan Yojana. Yes or no? Janadhan Yojana. So, first step is use Aadhaar, identify the beneficiaries. And these beneficiaries, if they have a bank account, great. Otherwise, there is Janadhan Yojana. Ask them to open Janadhan Yojana accounts. Third, transfer the benefits into their bank account. If it is right, a cash subsidy, transfer the benefit into their bank account. Now some of you will say, sir, what if it is not a cash subsidy? What if it is a kind subsidy? Now don't you think if it is a kind subsidy, Aadhaar will be sufficient to identify you don't require bank account then? Please do let me know. If it is a kind subsidy, Aadhaar will be sufficient, right? You do not require even the bank account, right? For example, PDS today, public distribution system, right? Nowadays, you can walk into a public distribution system, provide your Aadhaar credential, that is a thumbprint, get the food grains. Many of you, I'm pretty sure you would have seen it. If not experienced, at least you would have seen this. It is possible today, right? So in case it is a cash subsidy, bank account. If not, right, so let's transfer it to the direct beneficiaries like this. So the cash subsidy will be transferred into the bank account. Now, mobile connectivity, that is a third pillar. Mobile connectivity. Instead of going to the bank, can you use your mobile to get access to your bank accounts? Let me know. Instead of literally going to the bank, ATM, etc., etc., can you use your mobile connectivity to get access to your bank account? Of course, yes. So tell me now, are we not ensuring benefits are reaching the right beneficiaries through Janadhan, Aadhaar, Mobile Trinity? JAM Trinity, Janadhan, Aadhaar, Mobile Trinity. Are we able to achieve it or not? Right, that is basically the concept of JAM initiative. Can we go forward here? Can we go forward? With all of this, what we have done? We have been able to identify the beneficiaries. We have been able to ensure transparency in the system. We have been able to ensure right beneficiaries will get right benefit. Right, subsidy burden is lower, duplication has been addressed, etc., etc., etc. This is basically the idea of DBT. Next concept is e-rupee, which we'll take it up tomorrow. E-rupee, we'll take it up tomorrow. There are a couple of questions on the financial market. Let's finish the questions on the financial market. Then we'll start from e-rupee tomorrow. E-rupee is there. W2 and subsidies is there. Right. Once we end that, even subsidies will be over. We'll enter into agriculture. Okay. Let's solve the question here. Let's solve the question. Those who know the answer, you know about IFC, solve it. Otherwise, I'll tell others. Please don't worry. Okay. 42% have answered correctly. It should have been higher. Let's go. Again, don't worry. Some of you will simply say, sir, IFC, I've never come across it. IFC is part of World Bank. Have you heard of the term World Bank? Yes or no? Yesterday also I've mentioned. I've not discussed. I know that. Right? Under international relations, they are going to cover this. World Bank, there are parts. That is, there are different components within the World Bank. That is World Bank Group. One of the part of World Bank Group is International Finance Corporation. IFC, International Finance Corporation. International Finance Corporation offers these bonds is part, R means branch of World Bank. Statement 1 is correct. Okay. Second one, they are the rupee denominated bonds. Masala bonds, let me know. They are rupee denominated bonds and are a source of debt financing for public and private sector. That is, these are the bonds which are issued and right infrastructure, that is financing for the projects, is done. It's a debt financing. Statement 2 is also correct. Statement 2 is also correct. So first and 2 are correct. Right option for the question will be option C, both 1 and 2. Okay, next one. Okay, 56% have answered correctly. Let's start. With reference to Indian economy, consider the following statements. Commercial paper is a short-term unsecured promissory note. Correct or wrong? Let me know. Commercial paper is a short-term unsecured promissory note. Promissory means it is a promise that they will make the payment. Simple. Promissory note is they will make a payment. That promise is referred as a promissory note. Right? Statement 1 is correct. Somebody is saying wrong. How it is wrong? Please tell me. Statement 1 is correct. It is a short term, yes. Unsecured, yes, I've told you, right? Generally, the money market instruments, most of them are unsecured. Promissory note means, now I'm saying, anybody who is issuing this is promising that payment is going to be done. That is the reason why it is called as a promissory note. Certificate of deposit is a long term instrument. Is it a long term instrument? You don't have to go forward. Is it a long term instrument? No. Right? This is not a long term instrument. Call money is a short term finance used for interbank transactions. Statement 3 is correct. Okay, and finally, zero coupon bonds are interest bearing. Don't even go forward. Stop there only. Zero coupon bonds are interest bearing. Correct or wrong? Let me know. Correct or wrong? Wrong. Zero coupon bonds do not bear any interest. That's a basic idea of a zero coupon. So 1 is correct, 3 is correct. Right option is option C. Right option is option C. 1 and 3 are correct. Okay. Next one. Please have a look at this. Okay. 46% answer correctly. Let's start. Government can reduce the coupon rates on its borrowing by way of IIBs. Correct or wrong? Think of it and tell me. I've not used this specific statement, but I've given you a concept behind it. Let me know whether this statement is correct or wrong, and I can prove it to you. How? If you remember correctly, I told you one point. Imagine, right? I said, imagine this bond, right? I hope you remember your friend, right? Imagine this bond. I'm issuing this bond, and I said, I will give you a fixed coupon rate that is 8%. I'll give you a fixed coupon rate that is 8%. And I had asked you, if I give you a fixed coupon rate of 8%, are you facing a risk of inflation or not? I'd asked the same question. And I'd asked you, by investing in such bonds, are you not taking a risk? And if you're taking the risk, will you accept 8% coupon rate? Think of it. Will you accept 8% coupon rate? No. You will demand 9%. You will demand 10%. Some of you are saying yes. You should not accept, by the way. Those who are saying yes, get in touch with me. I want to borrow from you. And I do not want to adjust for inflation. I will give you a fixed rate of interest. On the other side, I'll give you one more example. Government says, take this bond and whatever is the coupon rate, I will adjust that with inflation. Let me know. I will adjust that with inflation. Now, don't you think, because you know that government is going to adjust that with inflation, right? Basically, right, the demand on that, right? Let's say even if it is 8%, you know, okay, it will be adjusted with inflation. Is it okay? Right? Is it okay? So government will be able to reduce the coupon rates on its borrowings in the form of IIB. Okay, done. First one. IIBs provide protection to the investors from uncertainty regarding inflation. Any difficulty here? Any difficulty? This is straightforward. Right? Straightforward. Third one, the interest received as well as capital gains on IIBs are not taxable. This is wrong. It is taxable. 1 and 2 are correct. Right option is option A. Right option is option A here. Okay. Now I'm not using elimination method. Most of you are saying, sir, use elimination method. I'm not using it. Why? If you look at the new trend of UPSC, you cannot use elimination method. That's a reason. Even though we can use elimination method, I'm simply solving all the questions. This one we have already solved. Is it okay? This one we have already solved. Yes or no? This is from this year. This question, last question for today, it is from this year, very much this year only. This one we have already solved. Okay, done. Now, any questions that you people have, this is the right time to shoot it at me. Rather than saying answer my question, what is your question? Type that. What is the concept of black marketing? Whenever the sellers will use any other channel except what is recommended by the government, that is called as black marketing. Okay, what is NPK ratio? What should be the average, right, consumption of nutrients? 4:2:1. That is basically the average ratio, NPK. Okay. Sir, how through Aadhaar we know if a person is a farmer or not? My dear, it's not like that. For example, if you are a beneficiary of NFSA, for example, understand this. If you are a beneficiary of NFSA, you can go to a PDS shop, right? Public distribution system shop, fair price shop. There, thumbprint scanners are present. Thumbprint scanners are present. If you keep your thumb, the system will tell you whether you are a beneficiary of NFSA or not. Is the logic okay? Does it make sense to you? And when you say you are using thumbprint, what are we using? Can I say we are using Aadhaar credentials? Right? Can I say Aadhaar credentials? Right? So how they will find? Arey Baba. Right? Simply waste of time. How will they find out? Aadhaar, they have you not given your Aadhaar, when you collected Aadhaar, have you not given your thumbprint to government? Think of it. All of this is simply waste of time. But even then, think of it. Have you not already given your thumbprint, iris, etc. to the government? right? Simply, huh? Any other question? Sir, if supply increases, what happens to the demand in MSP? Again, don't focus on the MSP like this here. If supply increases in the market prices will go down. That is the point. Okay. Anything else? What is quantitative easing? Quantitative easing is a monetary policy where the Federal Reserve will increase the money supply. Okay, will increase money supply. We have discussed this also under international trade. Huh. How about economic this week on YouTube? We are not doing economic this week. Weekly, we are doing certain important concepts which are there in the current affairs. Look at it. If market price increases, black market increases. Generally, that is what happens. Some of you are saying, sir, it will never happen. Please make an observation. Whenever the market prices of certain commodities will increase, black marketing of those commodities also increase. If you don't trust me, observe, look at newspapers regarding gold, you will realize it. What is the best newspaper, right? There is no answer to this question. My recommendation is use any one newspaper, Mint, Financial Express, right, or Business Line, Business Standard, left to you. Use any one of the newspapers in addition to Hindu, by the way. Sir, can others leave? Of course, yes. Right. I'm also going to wind up the question. If you do not have anything, please leave it. Why foreign investment and direct invest in market? Direct invest in market is part of capital when money invested later taken back by investors. My dear, foreign investors, will they create or will they invest in the assets or not? Think of it. Will they invest in the assets or not? Right. That is basically the reason why, right, they will be covered under the capital account. I'm unable to memorize economics concept. I've already told you. Try to make mind maps. Try to make short notes. Keep on revising them. Automatically, you'll understand. Difference between fertilizer subsidies and DBT in fertilizer. My dear, I gave you examples of how subsidies are given for different fertilizers. Then, right, then I told you there were issues regarding these fertilizer subsidies. In order to address that, we have introduced a new system, DBT, to provide a fertilizer subsidies. Okay. When should we start answer writing? If you ask me, from today. At least, not today, immediately you cannot do, at least from tomorrow. Okay, so done. We'll stop the discussion today here. We are supposed to discuss e-rupee, right? We are supposed to discuss e-rupee plus WTO and subsidies. That we'll discuss tomorrow. And after we are done with that, we'll jump to the idea of the agriculture sector. We'll have a complete discussion regarding MSP tomorrow. Have patience. We'll discuss that. So that's it from my side. See you tomorrow. Right. Take care. Good night.